We're gonna do the this treasure ranking episode, right?
Yeah,
That's what we're doing. Okay, you don't have any kind of like cute gimmicky format in mind for that because I mean I could drive half of this one if you'd like.
If you want to, you can go ahead. But I did have a format in mind.
It's not some sort of they made 32 video games, man, and I know all of them off the top of my head, and I've played every single one of them, and I believe I've beaten every single one of them. It should be pretty easy, I think. Should be pretty easy to rank all 32 of them for me. And I think, I don't know if Brandon's played Geist Crusher God, their last game.
Yeah, so there's like probably 5 or 6 that I haven't really played.
Okay, well, in that case,
and that's one of them.
Rest assured, I've played it for you, and I believe I can manufacture a pretty reasonable facsimile of what your opinion would be.
Sure, and
I mean,
in fairness, a lot of them I didn't play because I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I've played them all, and I have what I believe are pretty good opinions about them.
Yeah.
Treasure had 3 periods. Historians have divided up into 3 periods. There's early, middle, and late, right? I mean,
Should we
Dubba-doy.
like start the episode before we have this conversation?
Oh, it started already.
Okay, here we are. Welcome to Insert Credit.
Episode number what? 290?
290.
Episode 290, where normally we have a format. Today we're just going to rank all 32 treasure games.
Hey, why don't we pretend that this is what we promised would happen when we hit 666 patrons?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your reward.
The treasure number.
When we hit 290 episodes, we decided, I actually decided way back on the first, because I enjoyed playing Astro Boy Omega Factor, released in 2003, co-developed with Hitmaker, published by Sega, developed by none other than our good friends at Treasure. I enjoyed playing that so much on the Yamanote line back in the year 2003 on the Game Boy Advance that I found in the bottom drawer of my ex-roommate who had just been arrested for insurance fraud. I didn't like him. Neither of us liked him. I found a Game Boy Advance. I enjoyed playing Astro Boy Omega Factor so much while just looping around the Yamanote line because I didn't have a job. The Yamanote line has 29 stops. So I decided way back when we started the Insert Credit podcast that when we got to 290 episodes, that's 10 revolutions of the Yamanote line, we would rank all 32 treasure games.
Perfect.
Right?
I was going to say this month is the 30th anniversary of Treasure.
I mean, sure. It's also where, I mean, we should have waited until it had been 10 years since they released a game, which would be December 5th, 2023. Yes.
They say they're working on one.
We're coming up on the 10th.
Do they?
Yeah, who is they? Is it Masato Maegawa by himself in a basement?
Yeah. I think they're working on more remasters of stuff.
That would not be surprising.
Hiroshi Iuchi has a game at him too, but
Ubusuna.
Yeah,
Ubusuna. It's gonna be probably as hot, just about as hot as heck. So, I like Hiroshi Iuchi's post treasure work more than his treasure work, which is funny because he made one game. So, which was a Kokuga, which I'm the only guy on Earth who Kokuga's a treasure game. Brandon, you were saying a couple weeks back we should float in a couple of treasure-like games as we do this.
Yes, I was going to bake that into the format.
Yeah, I think we can manage that. So here's what I'm going to say. Just a couple of words. It's not necessarily a eulogy for Treasure so much as, I guess it's kind of a eulogy because it's been almost 10 years since they've made an original game. And the last original game they made was a remake of a game they had made less than a year earlier. Right.
That's
so
true.
It's a little dubious to... they're basically dead. So Geist Crusher came out. When did it come out? I don't know. Who knows?
December 5th, 2013.
Yeah, December 5th, 2013. And then I guess the next one came out September 4th, 2014, which would have been, less than a year later. And it's just a remake with a couple extra things. It's not a sequel. It's one of those popular early 2010s style remakes where they add a couple of things. So Treasure, just to give them a little bit of a eulogy here, me and Brandon Sheffield, I don't know about the other two persons present on this podcast, me and Brandon Sheffield, I'm Tim Rogers, you're Brandon Sheffield, right? Brandon Sheffield, say you're Brandon Sheffield.
I am Brandon Sheffield.
Alex Jaffe, I'm Tim Rogers, and I'm 44 years old. So Brandon, say your age and your name as well.
Oh, I'm Brandon Sheffield, and I'm 42 years old.
All right, Alex Jaffe.
I'm Alex Jaffe, and I'm 34 years old.
Crystal Lee.
I'm Christa Lee. I'm 31 years old.
All right. Okay, so me and Brandon Sheffield are old enough to remember when Treasure was brand new and groundbreaking, right?
Yes, I remember. I've told this on the podcast before, but I remember when I went into a game shop and having played Gunstar Heroes and asked if there were any more games like that, and they said no.
Interestingly, the question gets the same answer 30 years later. How much of a compliment is that, right? So it's, I mean, I remember when my encounter with Treasure was, as I believe a lot of people in our age, our exact age group, was like reading something like a lot. Not saying this is you necessarily, Brandon, though. A lot of us, it was diehard game fans, seeing them give all 100s to Gunstar Heroes and scream about it and talk about the segmented boss battles and the high speed action and all, and you know the fact that every level was a different genre of game or whatever, and we're just like, ooh, this is exciting. And Treasure had a couple genres, and this is how I think we can actually rank all of these games fairly painlessly. I don't think it's going to be that hard. Treasure had very few types of games that they made, and they reiterated a lot, right? So the genres Treasure made were side-scrollers, right, which may or may not have had shooting, okay? They made beat-em-ups, which may or may not have been versus beat-em-ups. Me and Brandon are also both old enough to remember probably where a lot... Do you remember people calling Street Fighter 2 a beat-em-up? Do you remember this?
And that persisted in the UK, I believe, for quite some time.
For quite some time, yeah. It was just, I mean, and some people would pitch it as, they would spin it as, it's a new type of beat-em-up. It's like, no, it's definitely fundamentally different from a beat-em-up. And then you remember stuff like Fatal Fury getting called a Street Fighter 2 clone, right? So, it's, so, I mean, Treasure made beat-em-ups that were also had elements of fighting games. They kind of did not make it easy on the British game critics, who were trying to pick, like, so the YuYu Hakusho for Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive was the beginning of Treasure's relationship with the beat 'em up, right?
Well, I mean, you could argue that the very beginning was Gunstar Heroes, no gun mode, but whatever. Sure. I mean, but Yu Yu Hakusho was a strict beat 'em up. So one thing that defines Treasure a little more for me than anything else is that they did very often kind of force shackles onto a player and like force you to play specific ways, which is why a no gun run of Gunstar is a kind of a unique thing for them. Weirdly, it was like before they kind of locked in, like the Radiant Silvergun, you basically have to play a specific way or it feels a little wrong. You feel like you're breaking it. Anyway, so that Radiant Silvergun would be the third type of game they made, which is a scrolling shooter, right? Yeah.
They made a couple of those. How many of those did they make? 4? They made four scrolling shooters. You know, we're going to talk about those. And then they also made, I would say the third genre would be 3D games.
Yeah.
The Treasure 3D game is
3D game / licensed nonsense.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's 3D games, and then there's kind of genreless games, which is where you put your Bangai-Os, your Rakugaki Showtimes. Yeah. And then there are fusions.
Is remake a genre for them? Because they...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that.
A creative remake. So like...
format.
So they reformat their game, Gunstar Heroes and Guardian Heroes for Game Boy Advance. Those were different games. They did a couple of games where they...
Sin and Punishment.
They slammed together... a couple of those genres, like Astro Boy Omega Factor feels kind of like a side scroller, but also kind of like a beat 'em up. That and what's the other one? Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Bad Dream.
Yeah.
Also is kind of a hybridized. So they got those. And then there's a couple just truly bonkers weird games. And I think, Sin and Punishment is the only thing of theirs that kind of feels like it combines everything that they worked on. It's 3D, it's a shooter. It's got some brawler stakes in it. It's got some arcade vibes. Anyway, that's all the stuff Treasure made, basically, in a nutshell. Those are the buckets. And then licensed is one of the flavors of their games.
Sure.
Right? Original is another flavor. So that's how I kind of see the taxonomy of Treasure. Now, how I see the spirituality of Treasure is Treasure was a game developer who, according to the urban myth, which is apparently not an urban myth, they were some developers from Konami who didn't want to make no goddarn Konami sequels no more, right? So they wanted to make original stuff. And Gunstar Heroes is what would happen if you went back completely to the drawing board and made a Contra. That was just not Contra, right? that was just a fresh, a completely breath of fresh air in a Contra-like game. And anyway, ironically, Treasure ended up making Gradius 5, a sequel, one of the higher numbered Konami sequels to ever have been made, besting Tokimeki Memorial, tying Metal Gear Solid. They ended up making one of the Uber sequels. I still like Gradius Gaiden better.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Gradius Gaiden is so tight, and that's not Treasure.
2 is amazing.
To add to the eulogizing, it was recently found that Treasure probably almost didn't exist past Gunstar Heroes, because the game was getting passed around Sega of America and nobody liked it. There were various producers that could take it on for Sega of America. They were passing it around and being like, this is no good, I don't like this. And then it got to this last guy whose name I unfortunately don't recall right now. They were like, either you take this on or it's going in the trash, and that's it, because nobody else wants it. And the guy took it and he was like, this is game of the year. He played it and he's like, this is game of the year. You guys are all nuts. And they're like, whatever, dude. And then it came out and then it made a bunch of game of the year lists. So good job to that guy, because...
Good job, that guy.
Max Sinor, I believe it is.
That sounds right. Because it's not like Treasure did super well in Japan or anything. Like,
no, they were games for freaks.
Without Gunstar Heroes doing well in the US, I don't know how many more Treasure games there would have been. So thanks to that guy.
He designed Tasmania for the Game Gear.
Oh boy,
good tunes, good tunes in that game. So Treasure very famously hitched their wagon to Sega. They made their first 6 games for Sega. I believe if we're going to talk about early Treasure describes those 6 games that they made for the Mega Drive. Yeah. Right? I believe that's indisputably almost everything Treasure would ever attempt to do, they did on the Mega Drive. Those 6 games, which were Gunstar Heroes, McDonald's Treasureland Adventure, Dynamite, Headdy, YuYu Hakusho, Makyō, Tōitsusen, Alien Soldier, and Light Crusader. Light Crusader was the one that they didn't bother to try to do that again. But the Alien Soldier was a weird game. YuYu Hakusho was a brawler. Dynamite Headdy was a straight-up platformer. McDonald's was a let's get some money with a license platformer that is better than, a more gauche critic would say. It's better than it has any right to be or whatever. Yes. I don't like that phrasing. But yes, and then Gunstar Heroes is just full-bore Treasure going for it. But they hitched themselves to Mega Drive because of that processor, the Motorola 68000, right?
And every one of those games was very programmatically focused in terms of what direction they were going to go. It's like, we figured out how to do this.
Just sparkling video games.
I've always kind of thought about those games specifically, like, they feel like the fighting game, like Street Fighter 2, was such a, explosion. And like Gunstar Heroes and Alien Soldier specifically, both really feel like, okay, you need to think about like your position and your movement and your follow through in a way that feels really indebted to fighting games, in a way that, like, say Contra's, or Castlevania, you've got sort of movement commitment, but those games are more dynamic and sort of, input, move quickly. Like and they keep doing games like that. Sin and Punishment obviously has like iframes, dodges and things like that. And they've always felt like the first developer to really crack that nut of like, what do fighting games mean for other formats?
Yeah, definitely more predictive movement than reactive movement, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to just to chalk it up to these were games made by people who were interested in lots of games and didn't really see why you had to separate them so much, right? And it's the fact that Gunstar has so many things that feel out of a fighting game. It stops. We didn't have the concept of like a boss rush before Treasure games, where it's like the idea of just fighting one boss after another, or a level that has like 12 bosses in it. Usually we would get like a boss, a mini boss if we were lucky, right? And it's like, if you love bosses, so there's these elements where the games become these one-on-one things where they're just fusing and blending mechanics and genres and stuff, and it's all just very sweet and tasty. So it's according to Wikipedia, the Treasure games Masato Maegawa, or the Konami games Masato Maegawa worked on, are the Simpsons arcade game, Bucky O'Hare, which is a very good game if you haven't played that, Super Castlevania 4, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, and Axlay. So
Axlay, hell yeah.
Yeah, Axelay's cool. So, you look at that and it's like there's 2 licensed games, one of which is a side-scrolling platformer. There's a Castlevania, which is a side-scrolling platformer with strict movement, forces you to commit to decisions. Contra 3: The Alien Wars, blazing fast 60 FPS shooting game with and then Axelay, a scrolling shooter. It's basically a full treasure menu. He worked on more games than that, but those are the ones that are commonly listed, right?
And as a schoolyard Sega defender, I love that he went on to he worked on 2 Super Nintendo games and then was like, you know what, I want to work on the Mega Drive.
I wanted to work on the Mega Drive because the processor was faster, the whole thing. There's remarkably less slowdown in, we didn't have Digital Foundry back then, but if we did, the Super Nintendo would have lost. No joke.
Gradius 3.
I've told John Linneman about this in so many words. Super Nintendo would have lost if they'd had Digital Foundry YouTube videos back then, because there was so much slowdown in every Super Nintendo game, and it was such a part of the experience. And there was remarkably less. There was still slowdown on Genesis. There was remarkably less. And the one thing that slaps you in the face like a goddarn scuba fin the instant you start playing Gunstar Heroes is, Lord, this thing is blazing, you know? Like, it's a blazing fast game. Of course, it does have some slowdown, like whatever, but blazing fast game. So the fact that Maegawa went on to make his own company and then basically made, sort of off-brand versions of the sorts of games he made at Konami, just like semi-off-brand versions. Gunstar Heroes has as much Castlevania in it as it does Contra in a way, right? It's very fun to think of the way this company happened. And the thing that strikes me so I think the best comparison you can draw before you start ranking a bunch of treasure games, the best comparison to draw would be Contra 3: The Alien Wars versus Gunstar Heroes. Mm-hmm. And why does Gunstar Heroes blow away Contra 3: The Alien Wars? I mean, there are dudes out there, the sort of dudes whose wives bought them a Super NES Mini for Christmas or whatever. There's dudes out there who are like, Contra 3: The Alien Wars, dude. That's the game, man. That's the best. And they've never played Gunstar Heroes, right? There's dudes out there like that. Not saying we know any of them. I don't think there's any of them on this show today, but
all but hardcore.
Like if I draw, hardcore's the good one. Yeah, you get a Nobuya Nakazato.
Of course, on the old Genesis there, that's why it was the best.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, okay. In my opinion, that and Castlevania Bloodlines are like the 2 best Konami games ever made.
They're hot ones.
Unless you count, the original Tokimeki Memorial. Well, I like the Tokimeki Memorial remake, Forever With You for the PlayStation 1. Treasure never made a dating sim, so maybe that's why they didn't succeed. They didn't capture the full Konami. So what separates Gunstar Heroes from Contra 3: The Alien Wars is something that a diehard game fan didn't pinpoint so much in their sprawling praise for Gunstar Heroes, where they screamed about the variety of the levels, the 2 different types of playable character, fixed or free, the fact that you can combine 2 weapons into 1 weapon, that there's billion ways to play through the game, that it's got a lot of bosses. What was actually the defining difference for me, and I believe for historians, between Gunstar Heroes and Contra 3: The Alien Wars is what modern day video game design university course professors refer to as game feel, right? Mm-hmm. The 0.27 second freeze frame when you grab a guy right before you throw him, during which you can English the directional input. That's the whole game right there. And that is Treasure's legacy. That is, like, believe it or not, we don't see any other video game developers of the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era perfectly understand the feel of a game the way Masato Maegawa and his buddies, his cronies, I don't know if they were cronies or not. They could have been cronies. I don't know if anybody understood game feel the way him and his bros did on Gunstar Heroes until I've tracked it. I've kept my nose to the ground and I've tracked it. It looks like it's 1998, the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. That looks like where suddenly somebody goes. I've sniffed out this trend in video games. If we put a little freeze frame for a second, when you hit a guy with a hard attack, kind of makes stuff feel better. And then Z-targeting inspired Demon Souls, and now we have From Software. That should have been Treasure making Elden Ring, right?
It's true.
But Treasure's not interested in story and narrative, and that's also been part of their legacy. When they did try to do story and narrative, can we just be honest? It was bad.
It wasn't good. It wasn't good when they did that.
Only part of Sin and Punishment that's...
Have you ever watched the opening cutscene of Sin and Punishment with your eyes open?
Describe to me the story of Wario World, please.
Wario World is one of the more coherent, one of the more easy to follow Treasure narratives.
I use Sin and Punishment as a test game when I do Nintendo 64 servicing. So I've seen the opening cutscene to Sin and Punishment probably 400 times, and I also play Sin and Punishment like weekly.
Do you have any idea who Saki is? I still don't. I still don't know.
No. I don't know what a seamer is. Yeah.
So I will admit, lest someone in the comments roast me, I do understand the story of Sin and Punishment, but only because I went to great lengths to do so, and I actually read the light novel at one point. So that's how messed up I am. Anyway, I believe that's all my preamble that I had in mind. I just wanted to say that Treasure was the original developer to leave Konami.
Yeah, the first Konami defector.
They did it before Igarashi. They did it before Kojima. They were the first Konami leavers. So good for them, right?
Blazing a path directly outside those offices.
Yeah.
And I just before we start ranking, I'm curious if everyone wants to say what their favorite Treasure format is. If such a thing could occur. So for me, I would choose the platformer. The
platformer? Yeah. When I boot up my Mister, which I do every night, MrAddons.com, I boot it up every night before bed, and take a little drink of Gatorade, not of anything else. I got to get my electrolytes up. It is very often Gunstar Heroes, even though I think that game has tons of problems. And I just wish I could jump straight into level 5, destroy them all every time, because that's the best slice of action game ever made. But I do very often also fire up Astro Boy Omega Factor or Tiny Toon Adventures Buster Busts Loose, also on my Mister. You have not lived until you've played a Game Boy Advance game on a 77-inch 4K OLED.
I'd put those closer into the beat 'em up format, but for me it's
they're hybrid. They're absolutely like a hybrid beat 'em up platformer, which they never made it work.
So I'd say even for me, Dynamite Headdy and Silhouette Mirage are probably the ones that I go to the most, aside from Gunstar Heroes.
Did you know you can also boot up Silhouette Mirage on your Mister as well, everybody? If you want, if you like the PlayStation version,
which I don't. Obviously.
It's okay. The PlayStation version. Okay. I've got both of them over here.
Totally fine.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's just it happened to get a localization in English. That's why Brandon doesn't like it, because Victor Ireland Working Designs went over. They raked it over the coals, as it were. But yeah, I mean, I very often boot up Gunstar Heroes or Dynamite Headdy. I have a lot of problems with Dynamite Headdy, and also Astro Boy or Tiny Toons. I like that stupid Tiny Toons game, man.
It's cool.
Repetitive for me, but we'll get into it.
Christa, it's not good at all, but yeah.
What's yours?
This isn't going to come as much of a surprise. The scrolling shooter, or including Sin and Punishment.
You consider Sin and Punishment a scrolling shooter?
It's like a gallery shooter. I mean,
it's a rail shooter.
It's a gallery shooter. It's a rail shooter. It's a platformer. It's a 3D game, and it's an arcade game. It's a home game. It's a story game. It's an action game.
Too many games.
Sega, when they were making Panzer Dragoon and Zwei, dramatic shooter was the sort of term they coined for it.
Yes.
And Sin and Punishment has always felt sort of like one of the few games that sort of takes that ball and runs with it. Where it's like these story segments kind of just injecting themselves into the play of it. The most bonkers cutscenes.
The train level is so good.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody likes the aircraft carrier level, which is, I guess, the best level.
It's the most fun.
You're flying on like a piece of pavement, which is only there so that the jump mechanic is still relevant, which is
I played that the other night, and I gotta tell you, that game gets down to 1 frame per second.
Oh, yeah.
It's remarkable. Yeah, the N64 is not built for that.
They were really excited to use the N64, though, I guess.
It's a cool machine. In retrospect, it's the only one that like renders 3D the way we do today, or close to.
They didn't want to use it like an N64, though. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just wanted to use it because they figured that was where the money was. Which
Japan exclusive N64 games.
Yeah, a Japan exclusive Nintendo. No, that game was intended for Western audiences, which is why it was all in English. Yeah. But they just forgot to make the English. They forgot to make it good.
Whoops.
So, again, okay, I think absolute final word before we rank these things.
We should let Jaffe choose his favorite format.
His favorite treasure format.
Oh, I'm also into the shooters. I know Ikaruga, Bangai-O. I played a little bit of Sin and Punishment. I think I would really be into the side-scrollers and platformers if I played them more. I just haven't gotten around to them.
Yeah, they were definitely the, if you're over the age of 40, Gunstar Heroes is too magnitudinous of a game. Like it came out when I was 14 years old, man, and that was a mind bender. I mean, this sounds stupid, but I guess it kind of changed my life the way a couple video games did. It's like, see, this proves that these stupid things are good.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, I guess you can do this, huh?
Yeah, and it's like, what else can they do with these? I guess I'd better keep paying attention.
I think Alien Soldier is that too for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I don't know about a lot of people.
Well, a lot of freaks. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a specific kind of freak that like really rallies around that one.
It's about 15 people that have played that game. So.
Alien Soldiers. I had a friend who could beat it. And
that's weird.
He's dead now. No, he's not dead. But I had a friend who could beat it.
In jail.
That's a weird guy. So. And I had several friends who could get close. Crystal Lee, can you beat Alien Soldier?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay. That's good. I was scared for a moment.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
I can't get past the first stage, practically. I have once.
I can actually get pretty far, but the fact that the game requires you to bend its rules, and the fact that treasure games are elsewise, so they revel in their rules so much. They live deliciously within their rules, like more so than any other game. And I mean, this is part of the reason why, to finally to finish the eulogy here. I believe Treasure never really succeeded and at finishing any one of their video games because they weren't making sequels for Konami. They were just having a great time making games that felt cool, did great stuff, and silently and visibly influenced a whole bunch of stuff that they influence everything I've ever made or tried to make in a video game. I don't think I've ever had a hand in any aspect of a video game that was not informed by the idea of a game feeling good, which I wouldn't know anything about were it not for Gunstar Heroes, right? So the reason they ended up not fully succeeding is I just don't think they ever finished a game. I think once something was out of the prototyping phase, it was not what Maegawa and co were interested in anymore.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that last 20% of polish.
It's like Alfred Hitchcock says that he's still alive. He says a movie is perfect when it's just a script, and then everything after that ruins it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's no better video game development adjacent example in video games than just the work of Treasure, I think, where it's the games are perfect as these prototypes, but then it's like, well, you got to just make some levels now, and you got to make a campaign, and you got to shape it into something,
make it longer.
And it's Gunstar Heroes is what a critic who would call Street Fighter 3 a beat 'em up would say Gunstar Heroes is made of a lot of bits and bobs, right? So it's just bits and bobs, and it was novel at the time, and then after a while you kind of see it as a pattern. Gunstar Heroes lives, breathes, and dies for me in that destroy them all level 5. The straight ahead, here's every permutation of enemies we can throw at you. That level where it's just a big old joyful, delightful shoot 'em up fest where you can use all the mechanics. That's the whole Treasure canon.
So now that we're talking about specific games, Tim, how did you want to approach ranking for this episode?
I think we should go in chronological order of release, and I think it's going to be pretty easy. So we can.
But we're going to have to talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to talk about them a little bit, or we can go in order of the genre type.
Yeah, I thought that's where we were going with the.
We can rank the genre type and with attention to chronological within each of the genres, and then just free jazz it the way Treasure would, right? Once we've prototyped it, just to vomit out a level design. All
right.
Does that make sense?
I like that.
So we've got Gunstar Heroes, Dynamite Headdy, Alien Soldier are the first. Let's start with those three. Those are the three and McDonald's Treasureland Adventure. The three side scrollers of the early period of the Genesis era, right?
Yeah.
Gunstar Heroes
Gunstar's number one.
Is number one. Dynamite Headdy is, again, Treasure trying to make a game with worldwide appeal. They made a mascot. No one on Earth, alive or dead, could tell you what it's supposed to be. The story doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it
has something to do with theater and puppets and playing in front of an audience, but that they never committed to.
Kids everywhere love theater and puppets, I guess, right? So it makes sense that that's what they made their game about.
So what I like about Dynamite Headdy is how much secret feeling stuff and weird stuff it has in it. Even if it's not all secret, it feels like there's stuff hidden around the corner all the time with that game. That's what I like about it. It inspires the imagination a little bit.
It is a singularly burstulous video game, with a lot of stuff. It really feels like, and this is probably it, actually. It really feels like a guy goes, yeah, I could make a Sonic and a Mario. And here's how I would do it. Right. Yeah. And it's like, it's not how anybody else would do it. And it's not really how most people would like it. Right. But it's it's almost like, what if an Amiga game was really fast?
Yeah.
Is like how it kind of feels at times. And that makes it singular.
I've booted up Dynamite Headdy God knows how many times. And that first stage, it's really, really tough to get through. I don't like the way the auto scrolling, like it's so bombastic and so like theatrical, but like it's just mushy in a weird way. It just feels strange to me. That's one that's never clicked with me.
Yeah.
I like it in theory, like I like a, gonzo platformer, but
yeah, see, this is a very good perspective to have here because for like me and Brandon, I don't know what your experience with Dynamite Headdy was initially when it came out, but I bought it for $6.40 at a toy store like a couple months after it came out. I played the heck out of it, and I liked it. I'd beaten Bubsy. I'd beaten Battletoads.
Yeah.
Didn't have too much of a problem with it. I could beat Battletoads. I don't need to prove anything to anybody on a Twitch stream and no more.
I played it later. I played it after playing through Silhouette Mirage, actually, and wanting more things like that, and then remembering that Dynamite Headdy existed and was by Treasure. I think I initially had a similar reaction to Christa, where I got it. I bought it before Silhouette Mirage. I got it also for dirt cheap, and then didn't get very far. And then after Silhouette Mirage, I wanted more of that, and so then I went back to Dynamite Headdy and found that I liked it. And I think that the mushiness doesn't bother me in this game because it also has sharpness.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, with Treasure, you kind of have to decide to like a thing or not from a certain vector. It's like if you've decided that you like this, then you can find that sort of fun in it. And if you haven't, then and Dynamite Headdy is definitely in that zone. So I enjoy it, but you got to be there for the bombast.
Yes.
We've got two more games in this.
Okay,
category.
so Alien Soldier and McDonald's Treasureland. Okay, so Alien Soldier is I think it's not going to be controversial with anyone here or listening to say Alien Soldier is one of the more obtuse video games of all time. This obtuseness is bolstered significantly by the way the game presents itself and looks, because you see a screenshot and might think, I bet I could play this game.
That's right.
I played a Contra. I know how to jump and shoot. And then it's like, it's not about jumping and shooting. It's about jumping and shooting and dodging and ducking and using your rocket
switching
thrusters.
Your weapons on the fly and god darn, just like it's about algebra.
Use your weapons that run out of ammo in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like more Pachinko-esque than even Doom Eternal in terms of having to switch your weapons every 5 seconds. Yeah. And the fact that the most powerful weapon you have is the afterburner thrust from your jetpack,
Right?
Right,
Ridiculous.
and that's like the only way to kill some stuff, and it looks really bad. Like it looks like the regular way to play the game is like a glitch speed run, and that's kind of like forcing people to. I mean, the game does have the world's longest. Is it the longest video game title? Visual Shock, Speed Shock. Now is the time for the 68,000 Heart on Fire. Alien Soldier from Mega Driver's Custom. That is the official title of the game, believe it or not.
I love it.
The opening story scroll. Y'all ever read the whole thing?
In the year 2015.
About Achi-Q, or A Earth. I've got most of the Japanese one memorized, if anybody ever wants to hear that. It's just very, very funny. And I remember asking Masato Maegawa, is the opening of Alien Soldier like supposed to be really funny? And he goes, yeah, dude. And I'm just like, all right, I'm glad to know. Because it's like, it is very funny. Like, I don't know. So the question is that better than McDonald's Treasureland Adventure? Because, Treasure made a game about a clown.
Yeah, so Treasureland Adventure is a game that I can play all the way through in one sitting every time.
Like it's like listening to a record.
Yeah.
It is, and
then Alien Soldier is the opposite.
Some of the music is actually quite good. I think that the pirate ship theme in McDonald's Treasureland Adventure is maybe their best Genesis piece of music.
Yes,
I really like it. So I'm a notorious easy game liker, and so
yeah,
I would put it above Alien Soldier because Alien Soldier is made only for freaks.
Yes.
And not only it's made for one specific freak, which is the person who made it.
Yeah. Treasure has a delightful legacy among these freaks, but that doesn't really excuse the game. The game is pretty it's a weird one, man.
It is too hard. And it's not too hard. It's too hard because it's so obtuse and it's so difficult to just the mechanics of figuring out what weapon you need and then getting to it in the amount of time you need to do that. Like they give you too many options, but you actually need all those too many options.
So it's an example of Treasure both prototyping something and also actually level designing it. This is what happens when Treasure does level design. They incorporate things like ammo pickups into the level design. They just consider everything level design, and it ends up being strangulating. It is a difficult game to think about, much less play. So it's like, I would actually say, and this is where we start getting to the problem of Treasure, where a lot of the actual runtime of some of these Treasure games, they're not good. And I believe Alien Soldier has the broadest, widest patch of not goodness among maybe the entire Treasure canon.
I've
sadly.
wanted to like it for 28 years.
It's so cool and weird looking. The big giant bird-headed robot.
It looks neat. It feels like it's going to be really... It feels to look at it like it's going to be really... like exactly what you said. You look at a screenshot and you're like, I know exactly how to have fun with this
I know what this would be. It's probably just like an arcade game.
And then you just can't do it.
But at the same time, it really is a celebration of the video game console as an idea, where it's like, you couldn't do this in an arcade. People would not put up with this in an arcade. Even the most ardent of one credit clear chasers would not want to sit with something like this. Maybe, like, I'm sure somebody would, but it's like they knew their audience. It is a brilliant case of knowing the audience, and this is something a lot of people might not know: is the Mega Drive was not cool in Japan. It was super cool for weirdos. Like, it was not mainstream at all.
Yeah, like the Troubleshooters game was those two games were by another freak person who was like, I love the Mega Drive. The Mega Drive is the coolest thing, and I'm making these games for myself on the Mega Drive because I believe in it. And that was like that Vic Tokai nonsense. But like Alien Soldier, to be clear, I'm glad that it exists.
I love it.
That people made it. I'm glad that there are people that like it. I wish I could play it.
I'm jealous of the programming in it because it's so clean and sparkly and beautiful.
It's a neat thing to exist. It's like in a different way proving what video games can be, because it's like, you can make a video game for one person and then 100 people will like that, and those people will say it's their favorite game ever.
And those people will eventually, over a period of 20 years, become like 106 people, right? So it's that's not bad.
I will say, to play Freak's Advocate here, I got really into Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden 2 over the last year or so.
You mean the Xbox ones?
Xbox 360, yeah.
Fantastic video games.
I got really into those, and then I played Alien Soldier, and I was like, oh, here it is. Like, it's just right here. Every single, like, the way that, like, the dodging, like, you have to be particular about your movement and, like, dodging through things and understanding, like, your iframes perfectly and where, all these different things collide. It's right there.
I remember my friend who could beat Alien Soldier could also destroy DMC3 Special Edition.
Yeah.
Right?
So you can basically only speedrun Alien Soldier.
Yeah.
You can only like frame perfect.
Basically, yeah. If you're not speedrunning it, your character is just dying constantly.
Yeah. But that being said, it is too hard for me.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's so fiddly. I am definitely later in this episode gonna lambast the most popular treasure game for being a game that a NASA guy with a college degree can't beat.
Let's do it.
But I do think Alien Soldier, I like it when it's Alien Soldier. I don't like it when it's that other game that I think I've mentioned on here before that I don't like before. But
it is fun to angle Alien Soldier as a proto character action game, and it also kind of speaks to the idea that I believe character action games just need 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I think 3D is like an essential element, and it's where you kind of run up against the actual limitations of 2D. Which 2D, Treasure sang some beautiful songs in the 2D register over the years. So let's move on to. Okay, so we're saying Gunstar's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Are we putting Dynamite Headdy at number 2?
That's right.
Puppets over Clowns in number 3, right? So we got Guns number 1, Puppets number 2, Clowns number 3. And Alien Soldier number 4, bird-headed robots number 4. Okay, so we now have Yu Yu Hakusho and Light Crusader from the Genesis era. So for Yu Yu Hakusho, I think we should rank it amongst its peers. Does this make sense? Yu Yu Hakusho is a game that was kind of a bit of an urban legendary game, a popular import for a time. Yu Yu Hakusho, a beautiful manga. If you haven't read that one,
it's great.
It's written by the guy who wrote Hunter x Hunter. Which is, few people can do one cool thing in their life.
Let alone multitudinous.
Yu Yu Hakusho has the best OP of any anime. I think
it's a good one.
My God, yeah. So this game was a cool game, and I did not play it until an emulator, right? Because I don't think it was a popular import in Japan. I remember seeing it behind glass when I first moved to Japan. Aspiring tourists to Japan, if you want to visit the best art gallery in the country, just go to any significantly stocked used game store's Mega Drive section because the box arts are so beautiful. Just Mega Drive box art is just the hippest, coolest looking. We've said this on this podcast probably like 100 times, right? So it's just beautiful to behold. But like I remember seeing the Yu Yu Hakusho game under glass and being like, "That's Treasure's Yu Yu Hakusho game, dude." To myself, because I didn't have any friends at that time, and it was just like I like this game a lot, but it also has inextricably it has the DNA of Guardian Heroes in it, right?
Yeah,
it's very much Guardian Heroes adds a campaign to this where Yu Yu Hakusho is it is a versus fighter with beat 'em up flavor to it, and
combos.
It's got combos, but it's got some accessibility. It's got some accessible like party time Mario Party-esque fun to it.
Yeah,
it has that classic Treasure feel, that sticky game feel. Now Guardian Heroes ran with that. And then much later, many years later, they made Guardian Heroes Advance. This sort of beat 'em up DNA found its way into Astro Boy Omega Factor, Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Bad Dream, and Bleach: The Blade of Fate, and Bleach: Dark Souls, the first Dark Souls game.
The true Dark Souls.
The true Dark Souls started in 2007 with Bleach: Dark Souls for Nintendo DS. I love it because it's, every game had to have a DS abbreviation. So those Bleach games are very much extensions of the Yu Yu Hakusho games. My favorite Yu Yu Hakusho style treasure game is Bleach: The Blade of Fate for Nintendo DS, the first one. I think the second one felt a little limper, in my opinion, but I think Guardian Heroes is the better of them all. This is my quick ranking. Guardian Heroes, Bleach: The Blade of Fate, then Yu Yu Hakusho, then Bleach: Dark Souls. That's my my ranking of the 4 treasure beat 'em up games.
Are we not going to put
we can put them on the list wherever.
We're going to put Buster's Bad Dream in there.
I would rank Buster's Bad Dream alongside. I mean, we could. It is a treasure beat 'em up, but it's faster paced. It has like a more of a platforming pace to it, in my opinion.
So I'm just a little confused about our ranking process because
me too. Yeah, that's what's good about this.
We ranked the first group in the Mega Drive era, and now we're extending.
We ranked 2D platformers that occasionally may have shooting in them.
Oh well, we didn't. So I thought we were
from the Genesis era.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take like an academic approach to ranking these. You taxonomize them first.
Because I would. Okay, so then we wouldn't rank this with the others.
Yeah, well, no, we're ending up with strata here, where we sort of understand where each game stands amongst others of its genre.
Okay, because I would have then wanted to put the Silhouette Mirage and Mischief Makers and whatever in the platforming.
We'll get to those. Those are Neo treasure platformers. They're from the middle period, which is the good period. The late period is the depressing period.
And this is why I'm wondering why we've got Yu Yu Hakusho and mid period and late period all in one.
Well, because it's the genre was kind of crystallized.
Yeah, these are the Yu Yu Hakusho like.
Yeah, like so.
Okay.
It is
right,
indisputable that it's indisputable that the Bleach games are just the Yu Yu Hakusho game, right?
Yeah. So I would agree then with that ranking if we're putting Buster's Bad Dream in a different place, but I wouldn't really put Buster's Bad Dream with like Silhouette Mirage.
Yeah.
So we'd have to put that in a different zone. Okay, but anyway, if that's what we're doing, I agree with that ranking.
Wait, so wait, yeah. So that's where I would put those 4. I don't know where that ranks them amongst the other games.
We'll meld them later.
Yeah, we'll meld this all in at some point.
I will say that this is one of my least favorite formats from Treasure, and I don't like Guardian Heroes.
You don't like Guardian Heroes?
No, I love Guardian Heroes.
No, I don't.
I like Guardian Heroes.
It's got a whole bunch of story that is always getting in the way of you trying to do things.
It's like even worse than the Dungeons and Dragons arcade games by Capcom.
To me, this is where their love affair with infinite combos began, and which I find a little tiresome. And it's an interesting thing because it's got the three lane fighting, so you fight in close, middle, and far distances from the camera, and it feels kind of silly, like why did they do that when it could have been a full-fledged beat 'em up? But then you watch them do a full-fledged beat 'em up, and you're like, well, I guess it was better when they did that.
Yeah, it's prototype. It's
prototypey.
It's that prototype sickness where the prototype is fun, but you can't really have a well-balanced meal of a video game that includes, like you say, really stupid, loose, frivolous, infinite combos, right?
I love how it showcased some things the Saturn could do and how its use of transparency. And I think that the idea of the arena where you could play as any character you'd ever interacted with,
just have a big old battle royale,
funny and weird, and it could be 6 players, and that was all cool stuff. Or was it 6 or was it 4? I think it was 6.
I think it's 6. It's definitely a game that Vanillaware made better later.
Yeah. Well, it's a game that Vanillaware made better. It's a game that the Panzer Bandit did better.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to my Panzer Bandit heads in the crowd.
It's just I don't dislike it. I just don't like it that much.
It's loosey goosey, and I mean it's the spirit of Treasure, right?
And I mention that only because it is the top. I agree that it's the top of this list of games, and also I don't like it as much as other formats.
It's a very interesting little pickle of a thing, and I mean when we do Tiny Toons, I would rank Tiny Toons, Astro Boy Omega Factor, and Guardian Heroes Advance kind of together.
Sure.
I would consider them another.
Why don't we do that right now?
Well, because I was going to say, I guess because we're almost at Mischief Makers, which is where we reach another milestone.
We do need to do
Light Crusader. I want to table Light Crusader. Okay, I want to table Light Crusader for now.
In the MISC folder?
Light Crusader. Yeah, that is a miscellaneous treasure experiment. It's their one attempt to make an RPG or a story game. It's not an RPG. It's a mysterious little video game.
It's really cool.
Well, let's not talk about it too much till we talk about it later, because I got plenty.
Yeah, it's cool as heck. But It's a mysterious little one, and we're going to have to kill some darlings here. So I would move on now to Mischief Makers. So we're now going to enter Treasures mid-period, and there's just no... You know what? Let's go ahead and rank Mischief Makers, Silhouette Mirage, Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Bad Dream, Astro Boy Omega Factor, Advanced Guardian Heroes, and Gunstar Superheroes. Let's rank those.
It's a little weird to put Silhouette Mirage in there for
Silhouette Mirage is number 1, so let's just put it up above all of those.
It's true.
Okay, Silhouette Mirage is... I feel like it's going to wind up at the top of this list.
Yeah.
Is that probably it?
It's perfect.
Silhouette Mirage is the last great treasure game to me.
It is.
Oh,
I feel like
maybe
it's
also the first.
I feel like it's the best. I feel like its reckoning is due, and if we're going to try to put out good, pure podcast content, we need to say something slightly original. Any other group, including 2 guys in their 40s, would put Gunstar Heroes at the top and say Gunstar Heroes, dude. Right? So it's I think Silhouette Mirage's reckoning is due, and I do think it is an interesting game for a huge variety of reasons. I can go into 2 of them right now. One of them is okay, so Brandon, I know you're a huge Silhouette Mirage fan, right?
Yeah.
You're a big boy. I like this. I'm a big boy Silhouette Mirage fan myself. You shoot different colored projectiles depending on which side of the screen you're facing, right?
Yeah.
That's the basic gist of it. Okay, so what Silhouette Mirage is it's a proto Ikaruga.
Yep.
But it's also a Gunstar Heroes.
Yeah.
But it's also a commentary on side-scrolling shooters like Gradius. So where, you can only face one direction. You can't turn around, right? It's like, what if when you turned around, you did something different? What if you could do something different, but what if you could shoot in the other direction, but you did something different? And that alone on its face is worthy of a round of applause. And then I feel like Silhouette Mirage, better even than Gunstar Heroes, graduates past the prototype phase. I feel like the level designs it's just generally pleasant. They know what they're doing when there's a boss. They explore all the possibilities of the mechanics as they clash against a boss. I mean, not to say I describe Gunstar Heroes as kind of prototypey. It's 7 Force, heck of a boss, right? But I mean, it really feels like they were just throwing spaghetti at the wall in terms of their encounters. Beautifully well programmed spaghetti. But I just feel like Silhouette Mirage just kind of has it all.
It's also one of the later / last examples of them doing, making the best of a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is a 2D side-scrolling AAA video game, right?
Yeah, and the way that they use transparency and the way that they use scaling and, all the things that Saturn could actually do pretty well. I mean, it couldn't do transparency in a complicated way, but it could do it in very specific ways that Silhouette Mirage highlights. There are 2 things I feel about it in terms of what I can feel as a player that I think must have happened during development. And one is, starting with what can we do with this programmatically, and then the other was the wouldn't it be fun if X happened. Feels like it was actually in a contained box this time instead of going in all directions. So the bosses or the stage gimmicks or whatever feel like that. Wouldn't it be fun if we did this thing? But that someone was actually having fun doing it, and they had a good time thinking about it. And then when they made it, they were like, "Heck yeah!" Just
a wonderful little thing. It's impossible to describe to someone who hasn't played it what the main character is.
Yeah,
it's like it's a girl. I don't know what she's
supposed. Like a little cotton.
Yeah, she's a little kind of
a little cotton witch. And it's fun to move. It's fun to move her around the screen. She flaps with her little bat ear hat that she's got.
Yeah, little bat hat.
And it's just it's got a little Sonic in there in terms of how you're rolling around. You don't literally roll, but yeah.
So Silhouette Mirage, like I said, it is about the last. It was during it just kind of getting in just as the door was about to close. Indiana Jones grabbing his hat under the door, as it were, for the window to make a AAA commercially viable 2D side-scrolling platform game was closing rapidly, even more rapidly than the Rapid Angel of the game Rapid Angel. It's my good joke there. There were games you had to do stuff like Pandemonium with the 2.5D, Klonoa with its virtuosic 2.5D and otherwise kind of milquetoast mechanics. Mega Man 8. There were what were a couple more of them? I guess there were just Mischief. Well, Mischief Makers, sure.
Symphony of the Night, of course.
Symphony of the Night being the quote, I guess the last great one. Chippoke Rarufu no Daiboken was another pretty good side-scrolling treasure-like-ish kind of akin.
Hermie Hopperhead.
Yeah, Hermie Hopperhead, dude.
The best commercial.
One of my favorite treasure games, Psychic Killer Taromaru.
Yes.
2.5D.
Yes. You know what game I like is that god darn tripped out, like, kind of psychopathic Shinobi on the Sega Saturn.
Shinobi
X.
X.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's really good. The jumps are ridiculous. Completely OP.
Again, that was somebody trying to make a 2D game that's AAA.
What a bizarre video game.
And it's like you have to end up doing... people were committing to all sorts of graphical trickery. I think Klonoa pulls it off the best. Mm-hmm. Tomba, there's another one that does
Tomba's
some
weird.
Neat stuff. Tomba's... I don't like
Tomba. That's a really weird game.
Have you played Tomba 2?
Tomba.
I haven't. I just played the first one, and I was like, this is like 5-dimensional math I have to do on like where I'm positioning and where I'm going.
First of all, I love any game that asks me to kill pigs, but it's I mean those games are a bit of a stretcher for me. But it's like that's the sort of thing people had to do to sell a 2D video game at those points in time. Tomba 2 is not even really a 2D video game.
Let's get back to this category.
We're still here. I think Tomba's a very good game to bring up adjacent to Mischief Makers, which is for me
what is it?
I don't love that game.
I don't
like it either.
That's a game where it's another Amiga-esque game where the level designs are just a whole bunch of boxes. Right?
I think that like
a whole bunch of boxes just with a weird face on them.
It's a problem when you don't really know what to do when you're dropped into the level. It's like what is the fun that's supposed to be in here? Eventually you can figure it out, but as a it's like the opposite of the Miyamoto design that is so famously talked about, where it's like you're in the screen, the player knows what to do, you see the things to experiment, and here it's just like, look at this stuff. I don't know.
I feel like I can't don't quote me on this, but I feel like there's a level of Mischief Makers early on in the game where you're dropped into the level at the dead center of the screen facing to the left, and you're like supposed to go right or whatever. And it's like it's like just a very slapdash. The game's cool once you play it enough, but it does really feel...
You have to learn how to like it, which is troublesome.
Yeah. Which is always asking a little too much of anybody.
I was, I'm 31, so I was like 9 when the Dreamcast closed up shop. So we'll get back to what I heard when I was a kid about treasure games. But one thing I heard was that Mischief Makers is real cool. It's like the cool N64 game. I'm pretty sure it's because it looks like something. Because every time I play it, I'm like, there's nothing. It's Tomba-esque. It's just like, this is... Sure, you could do this, and it looks neat. Like watching someone play it is cool, but
So I guess like what Tomba has that Mischief Makers doesn't is Tomba is it feels like it's kind of about something, like it has a story, and it's not even really the story so much as you're hanging out. You really do kind of feel like you're
hanging out. Hangout spot. And Mischief Makers is not that.
It has some bad action. It has some bad collision. It has some bad writing. It has a lot of bad everything. But you do feel like you're hanging out. All the puzzles are very lock and key. Bring this thing to this guy. Okay, I'll walk over there, I guess. And then I'll go up that tree. I'll jump off this thing. Mischief Makers feels like it had the same idea, but it didn't follow through on... like 9 out of 10 implementations.
Yeah.
Right? The mechanic is you can pick stuff up and shake it, and then it does stuff. Always beware of a video game mechanic, of a design jotted on a bar napkin that says, when you do this, something happens. It's like where it's just up to the designer's discretion. It's like what happens when you shake a thing?
Who knows?
Depends on the thing. But then everything looks basically the same. It's those weird boxes with those creepy faces on them.
Animal Crossing faces.
Yeah, the Animal Crossing dancing, whatever those things are, faces.
Do you think it was originally called Mischief Shakers?
Dekunobo faces.
It should have been.
It's called UK Troublemakers. Go Troublemakers. But it should have been called Trouble... I think Trouble Shakers would have been a better name if I had been localizing it. I would have called it Trouble Shakers. I think that would have been a cool name. But anyway, I'd rank that one. So we got Mischief Maker, Silhouette, Mirage, and then I would. So yeah, I think bookends. I'd put Silhouette, Mirage at the top, and Mischief Makers at the bottom of the list that is sandwiching Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster's Bad Dream, Astro Boy Omega Factor, Guardian Heroes Advance, and Gunstar Superheroes. So where do we put those?
So those all are not going to be at the top of the list for me, but I guess for I would say Astro Boy is going to be next after Silhouette Mirage, but it's a very distant second to me.
Yeah. I love that Astro Boy game.
It's incredible.
The first 2 levels. And then it's like it becomes this boss rush, and it's not the same game, but it's still good.
It's weirdly a grind fest for me, but you're not grinding points. You're just grinding.
Yeah. Like it is the closest Treasure ever came to making a Castlevania game, I would say. And no, I will not elaborate on that today, but it is the closest they ever came to making a Castlevania game. And for that, I gotta respect it. It is definitely the most Rondo of Blood-esque game they ever made. I'm not going to elaborate on that either, but it's just very like it's got a lot of that DNA in it, but it doesn't have it doesn't have the user experience. It's so cold. So surgical to refer to level design as user experience, but it's like, give me something, man.
It tries to wrench a lot of like input and move diversity out of the Game Boy Advance.
The kick and the laser,
and it's pretty commendable, but it
doesn't 100% work. They really tried. They gave it a shot, but I had the feeling of like I don't really want to do this when I have to do certain things. Like
heck of a game to play on the Yamanote line, though.
I remember
10 laps, dude. 290.
I remember when I was a kid that like that game was the Astro Boy game. People were like, "Oh my god, people are still making this kind of game, and it's great.
Yeah,
we need to champion this because people,
the Neo Treasure side scroller.
Now they're making that kind of game in droves, but Treasure aren't.
Man, so it's I'm so glad. I was waiting for someone to bring that up. That there are so many incredible, good feeling 2D action games coming out every other day now. So Treasure lives on in the hearts and minds of everybody making games like Hollow Knight or whatever. Yeah. So they're there.
So then next I would put Tiny Toon Adventures Buster's Bad Dream, which to me is too repetitive.
I feel like I keep calling it Buster Busts Loose. That's not the same game. It's Buster's Bad Dream. I know what I'm talking about.
Buster's Bad Dream.
Or Bab's Big Break.
It's Big Break, it's very combo focused, but it's one of those games where the level design only exists to put you in a spot where you can punch dudes. Like it's not. Yeah. It's very flat.
Every once in a while, again, they fumble the football. They kludge the Butterfinger bar. I don't know what that means. Every once in a while, in the level design, where they're like, "We're going to give you a platform challenge now," and it's like the haunted house level where there's like these disappearing blocks. I just played through this whole game like last week. Not even related to this episode. Again, if you have yourself a Mister. Definitely boot up. Just go ahead if you haven't played them. Play Treasure's Game Boy Advance games on your Mister. Each of them will give you a good time, even no matter what negative things we're saying about them. You'll have a good time if you play an hour of each of these games. I maybe not an hour on some of them, but if you play some of these games, spend an hour. Have yourself a little taster's menu. But it's like like Tiny Toon Adventures. There's a part where you have to like jump on disappearing platforms that you'll fall, and they're like just not designed with any attention to how a player plays a video game, and it's just like it's so exact and persnickety, and again Amiga-esque, feels like a Commodore 64 game. But then the punching is virtuosic.
Yeah, the punching feels good.
It's just phenomenal. So I like that one a lot. We're saying Astro Boy second, Buster's Bad Dream is third in this list?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got the two controversial. Let's all remember that Treasure left. They left Konami because they didn't want to make no sequels no more, right? But then they made Advanced Guardian Heroes and Gunstar Superheroes, which are
we going to put Gunstar Superheroes in here?
In this little list? Yeah, I'm calling this period Neo 2D Treasure.
Okay.
Right? Because where the genres are so fused at this point. The YuYu Hakusho and Guardian and Gunstar heroes have fused so hard here, right? The Guardian and Gunstar heroes have fused, and that's where we end up with Silhouette Mirage. That's where we end up with Mischief Makers. I feel like that kind of brings us into a different philosophical era of treasure.
Okay, I'll buy it.
I think like they're all the same genre, even if they're very different
formats. Then I would put Gunstar Superheroes next. I don't like it, but it at least kind of looks like it's given something a shot.
Yeah, like I remember reviews at the time were critical of the fact that it was not just a port of Gunstar Heroes for the Game Boy Advance. A lot of people were upset about that. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
So that kind of tainted any discussion anybody could have about it.
I think they were also upset because it's not
a straight-ahead shooting game either.
Well, it wasn't as fun as Gunstar Heroes, and so they felt like a port would have been better.
They'd gotten it was too puzzly.
It was too puzzly, and it was, in some conditions when you start, you're just on that platform and you can't move, and you got to shoot all these things around you and grapple with the mechanics right away, and it's just like, man, don't do that to me.
And doing that all on a Game Boy Advance was pretty painful. So wait, you like the Gunstar Superheroes more than Advanced Guardian Heroes?
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel like Advanced Guardian Heroes is not finished.
Advanced Guardian Heroes is an incredibly unfinished video game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's where the thing I was talking about earlier, where I was like, man, do they really need these 3 lanes for Guardian Heroes? Because like they could have just let them move all around.
And the lane switching thing is pretty stupid.
And then when you get to Advanced Guardian Heroes, then it's like, oh well, I guess they needed it because without it, it feels even less like something. So
and it's like is the beat 'em up dead? Has been a conversation topic among game heads for too long.
It's definitely back now for sure, but it took a long time for it to get back.
People were looking in the wrong places. I remember Guardian Heroes being yelled about as being like the beat 'em up is back. All the way back.
Yeah, because people liked the RPG mechanics and
they thought that was what brings the beat 'em up back. When really Yakuza fully brought the beat 'em up back. But if they would have looked at games like the Ninja Warriors again, or Ninja Warriors for Super Nintendo, they would have seen this is where the beat 'em up can go. Mm-hmm. I honestly think Taito's Ninja Warriors again is the best treasure beat 'em up.
It's really unfortunate that because the beat 'em up kind of fizzled out with both Final Fight 3 and Streets of Rage 3, and those two are my favorites in both of those series. But
Streets of Rage 3
just didn't sell that well.
That's one of my favorite games ever. Bare Knuckle 3.
If only somebody could have reverse funneled the flavor and the texture of Ninja Warriors for Super Nintendo. I have to keep specifying the Super Nintendo one. Ninja Warriors again, as it's called in Japan. If only they could have reverse funneled that into a party time beat 'em up, like a 2-player fun beat 'em up, a more fun focused beat 'em up. They would have kept the beat 'em up genre going, but it fizzled out. Even with Streets of Rage 3, best party time beat 'em up ever. I like that Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. That kind of felt like a treasure Ninja Turtles game. Yeah, so I mean that had a lot of moves in there.
Tribute is certainly one of those developers where they took the treasure ideas and ran with them.
I love those treasure ideas. So I guess that's how we rank all those. Jaffe, are you writing this down?
It's all in the chat.
Okay,
I would almost put Mischief Makers above Advanced Guardian Heroes just because I felt offended by it. But
let's do it. Yeah, okay. Good. That's a good call.
Pull the
That's
trigger.
a good call. So we're kind of seeing what the bottom of our list is going to look like. This is good. So let's
Is it Shootin' time?
We're rolling the clock all the way back to 1998, where we encounter a video game that Brandon Sheffield found for $10 at EB Games, while the rest of us schlubs suffered just the bullies on internet forums for decades because of this game. Radiant Silvergun. The most famous import video game of all time. You didn't get it for $10?
So I had it
early.
You
walked into EB Games and you just bought it, right?
No, I got it from my friend.
Oh, your friend gave it to you.
In high school, my friend lent it to me, and he's like, "I don't ever need this back. You could just have it."
Man.
And then I played it for a long time, and then I saw the price going up, and then I was like, you know what? I can't hold on to this. I feel guilty, and I gave it back to him, and then he sold it. So then I had to buy it back later at a high price.
I didn't know this whole saga, but that's fun to know.
One fun thing about that game is that, the retro market is a disaster now. But Radiant Silvergun's still pretty much like $200, $400. Like, it's not... Panzer Dragoon Saga is like $1,500, $1,800 at this point, right? Like, it's you're not going to get Panzer Dragoon Saga, but if you care enough, you can probably get Radiant Silvergun.
To be clear, just for the people that like to hear about good deals. So this is when eBay was doing their sometimes they would give you like a 20% off thing. So that you could use on anything. And so I found this person who was selling Psychic Killer Taromaru, Steam Hearts, and Radiant Silvergun in a lot for $800.
Oh, that's neat.
This is a lot of money. But then I took 20% off, and then I had some refund for something that was $100. And so I got those 3 games for like about $550, and I worked it out to Radiant Silvergun being about maybe $100 out of that deal. And Psychic Killer Taromaru, by the way, goes for like $1,200 by itself. So.
Yeah, that's a pricey one.
It's like the most expensive import game, I think, unless Tri-Rush Death.
That was like way too much money for me to spend, but sometimes you get in the zone, you got to do it, and I just did it. Anyway.
Right now, you can buy a brand new sealed copy of Radiant Silvergun for $949, but then otherwise, it's about $200.
Yeah, it was $200 when I was in college too.
Yeah, it's
I remember when Panzer Dragoon Saga was $400, and I was like, I'm never going to get that. If I saw Panzer Dragoon Saga for $400 right now,
I just have the Japanese version, which I got brand new for $10.
Yeah, I got one for $40.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a beautiful looking.
So
package.
Radiant Silvergun, that's a game that I have a complicated relationship with, because I thought one of the reasons I gave it back is because I thought it was just okay. And insert credit co-founder Vincent Diamante loved it because he was into the score mechanics and the way that the weapons combine, which was a very Gunstar Hero Zealous edition. And he also really likes the music, which I was very cool on, but I like the music a lot more now. I do sort of like the graphics a little more than I used to.
Well, the music is so good. Hitoshi Sakimoto, dude.
Yeah.
But I still don't love engaging with the mechanics the way they want me to.
It's a little too academic. It feels a little too lectural at times, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it again feels like a Gradius critique, where you have all your weapons right at the beginning, and you just have them all the time, forever. And you have 3 different weapons, and then you can also press 2 buttons at the same time to do different combos of weapons, or press all 3 buttons to do your big sword or your sword, right? That's right off the bat really neat, right?
Yeah. It's definitely cool.
Yeah, but then the game, I feel like there's not as much like straight ahead shooting joy in it. I feel like you're too incentivized.
Exactly. For a schlub like me, there's not enough of it, because I was spoil of riches, I don't know what you call it, on the Saturn with shooting games. There's just like
some real good ones, yeah.
So many good. Coming from playing the PC Engine, where I had all these virtuosic shooting games, and then to the Saturn, where I was like, well, I guess this is my other system now, with all these virtuosic shooting games. I was playing Sokyu Gurentai. I was playing
Sokyu Gurentai.
So I feel like what do you call it? Like Treasure making a straight up scrolling shooter after all of their work in 2D and platforming. The only example that immediately springs to mind is it's kind of like a Nobel Prize winning author Kazuo Ishiguro writing a fantasy novel, which he did, and then got made fun of by Ursula K. Le Guin, right? So it's like, you don't know fantasy. It's like, this wasn't really their thing. I mean, again, Masato Maegawa worked on Axlay, right? So it's like, there was shooting DNA in there, but it's like, they're just going to make a straight up arcade style 2D overhead shooting game in a square aspect ratio. It's not Tate.
Vertizontal, they call it.
Yeah, vertizontal. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And they're just going to go ahead and make this, and it's not what everybody else is doing, and everybody else is kind of working on something right now. They're working collaboratively and together. And Treasure just kind of walked in arms akimbo again with this Gradius critique of different weapons. And it's like there's different, like of all your weapons being unlocked, different weapons having different effects on different enemies. The scoring mechanics being like the based around the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. First of all, that's too many colors. Second of all, primary colors are boring. I believe John Romero's quote about symmetry applies here as well. Primary colors are a bit boring, and it's like you shoot a red enemy now, a yellow enemy now.
Remind me of the quote for our podcastulus.
Oh, John Romero says the symmetry is boring, right? So in level design,
there we go.
Right, so John Romero apparently never played Pac-Man. That's not true, but it's Pac-Man's perfectly symmetrical. But it's like it's like I feel like when they eventually made Ikaruga stands in as both a spiritual successor to Radiant Silvergun and also kind of a critique of Radiant Silvergun in a funny, like in a very, very quaint little way, where it's like there's two types of bullet and there's two colors of enemy, and you can press a button to switch. And it's just this cute little, really just kind of a paring down of what Radiant Silvergun was going for. But let's keep talking about Radiant Silvergun.
So just to like sort of lay out what Radiant Silvergun's doing, just in sort of concrete terms, like they have 3 weapons. You have 3 weapons. You use them, and they level up over time. So instead of where with Gradius you're getting like power ups, and then you're choosing to spend them at specific times, you're choosing to use weapons at specific times. Some weapons are better against sun enemies. The most efficient way to play the game is actually just to shoot the red enemies, and no other enemies, because you also chain up the more enemies of the same color, 3 in a row of the same color that you shoot. You level up. Ikaruga also uses this system. Yeah,
the scoring system isn't just for the score; it is for leveling up and powering up your weapons.
So you were describing Treasure games as games that are like in love with their rules, and I to spoil it, I hate Ikaruga with a passion. But we're
gonna take Ikaruga down a notch tonight.
Yeah,
let's do it. Let's do it.
But
I love it.
Radiant Silvergun at least is honest. So Ikaruga is like, you can just run into the bullets, just do the thing. It's fine. But no, you can't. Like, you've got to sort of wrestle with it. At least Radiant Silvergun has the decency to be like, no, you're playing our game. You are a rat in a maze, and you have to do this, or you won't get past like stage 3. Like, after a point, if you're not leveling up your weapons, you just really can't progress.
Yeah. So I've seen Radiant Silvergun being slowly chipped away at by just the criticosphere since Ikaruga, and I feel like its estimation has gotten lower. It's like it's actually not very good. It's actually too strict. It's actually like whatever.
Yeah, I think the strictness helped it. I had a fun time watching Instant Credit co-founder Vincent Dumonte play Radiant Silvergun because he understood it. He understood.
Yeah, I watched him beat it. I sat there and watched him play that whole thing multiple times.
Fun to watch him understand how to be the rat in the maze, but also have fun being the rat in the maze. And so that actually raised its stock for me quite significantly.
And also the fact that it's so loaded with little secrets.
The little dogs.
All the dogs, goddamn dogs.
You got to get those really to actually get far enough. You have to learn where they are.
Yeah,
they play tested it with like pro shooting players. I'm not sure that those existed back then, but
for people who don't know about the dogs, there's little dogs you can collect, and it's not exactly like an A-life situation like in Knights or something, but there are dogs that you can only get if you found other dogs and stuff like that, and there's a little place where you can view all the dogs that you got, and they look really strange.
They're weird alien dogs. You just have to like shoot specific points in the level,
with a homing laser.
Yeah, it's pretty simplistic, but it
kind of like Doranpachi
made me excited about the possibilities. So I like that.
Like you say, they test it with real shooting, with like good shooting game players. It's very much made extremely attentive. Like I say, it's an academic shooter, right? Like they approached the shooter very academically. It wasn't super rock and roll the way they composed and put this game together. Yeah, and it does feel a little bit. Well, I mean, you say it's a positive. I mean, I would say I guess it's a positive too. It feels a bit dogmatic, didactic. It's like you got to do this.
It came around to become a positive for me when held against other things that they tried to do, I guess.
Yeah, I think Ikaruga made me like Radiant Silvergun first more than Ikaruga, and second more than I'd liked it before. So that's a cool thing.
It's at least more treasury to me.
Yeah.
what I think of as treasure.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Radiant Silvergun is a weird game. Again, it's treasure trying to make a game that's more than an arcade game, right? Because it's got the weapon level. I mean, obviously there is an arcade version.
It's a console
of Radiant Silvergun.
shooter.
Yeah,
it really is a console game.
It's very much they're giving you a full console experience. It doesn't feel like an arcade, like a console port of an arcade game. It's not exactly on the level of Castlevania Symphony of the Night or whatnot in terms of implementing RPG mechanics. But there's a lot of stuff in there to keep your mind engaged. A lot of Druaga-ism in there to keep you and your friends whispering about it.
Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the console nature of it. Was kind of the whole point of the board that it was on, the STV, which was basically a Saturn, and so it was going to make ports incredibly easy, and they were, and so you could think about making a console game that played in the arcade, or an arcade game that played in the console.
I used to go to Taito Hirosei Entertainment Yard, HEY, Hey, in Akihabara, and watch dudes 1cc Radiant Silvergun. It was very fun. It was very fun to just stand there. Ikaruga is a much faster game. People get through it, but Ikaruga is really dull to watch someone play well, in my opinion.
Surgery.
Yeah. There's a lot of just like a guy just ticking the joystick a tiny bit to keep his character within a little gap as the screen slowly scrolls up. And it's like, I know that's kind of what these games are, but there's a lot of dead air in Ikaruga. And
I mean, it's fun to play a bullet hell or a curtain fire shooter or whatever. And I feel like in a way Ikaruga was a critique of that burgeoning genre with the donpachis and whatnot.
You can just press a button and eat all the bullets.
Yeah, but it didn't quite get there for me in terms of, like, it wasn't really a critique, it was more a spin, I guess.
The design is just too pure. There's such a thing as too pure in design. Yeah. And I think they left them with like nowhere to go. And it just has these vaguely portentous overtones in the story. Little poetic words on the screen. Radiant Silvergun is just all out anime, complete trash nonsense in the plot.
Ikaruga is kind of also where I think the press hype cycle kind of started to let them down.
Frothing demand for this game increases. Greatest game box quote of all time.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I was going to open the episode with that.
It hurt well, them in that the press was going wild for this thing because they had indeed, their demand had been frothed over the years.
They had to go,
because the story of treasure as the greatest action.
We see this a lot in media. People didn't feel invited to the party until Ikaruga, right? They felt like they missed the party, and then it's like, this is my opportunity to go to the party, so I'm gonna make sure it's the best party ever. And it's like, oh, it's the band is pretty old at this point, It's kind of sad to think of treasure as having been old after just 8 years of making.
And you notice that their the critical acclaim just falls off a cliff immediately after Ikaruga, basically, because everyone wanted to be like, I feel like in the press, everyone wanted to be the one to talk about how great this was. Yeah. And I don't think the consumer audience was necessarily there for it. And then it almost did them a disservice because they're, with Astro Boy, we were talking about treasure is back. Is what the narrative tried to be. And that was like 2 years after Ikaruga,
Yes. They were back after,
I was, like I said earlier, when I was a kid, when like the GameCube, PlayStation 2, all that. So I specifically remember, like, I didn't play shooters. And here comes Ikaruga and like, oh yeah, the frothing demand. So, I was like, I'd probably like to get into shooters. I might as well play the best one. And everybody keeps hollering about this. So for like years, I'd pick it up. Oh, I hate this. Put it down. Pick it up. Oh, I hate this. Put it down.
Yeah.
Like, and it just, at one point I was able to get to like stage 5. It's not like I wasn't good at it or couldn't acclimate to it. It's just so it doesn't have the juice the way that like Silhouette Mirage or Sin and Punishment or even Alien Soldier, like it's so clinical.
Yeah.
They needed the fluff, it turns out.
Yeah.
I just want to hammer again that the plot and the narrative, it's past a certain point, clean, surgical, poetic nonsense really just ticks me off. I would prefer it full of toxic, idiotic personality, like Radiant Silvergun was. It felt artless.
Arbitrarily at the end, the final boss of Radiant Silvergun shows up, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess this is a sequel or something, but I didn't have anywhere to glean that from.
Yeah, there's probably some lore videos you can watch on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a manual.
So anyway, they made between Radiant Silvergun and Ikaruga, they made one shooting game, and after Ikaruga, they made one more shooting game. Yeah. So they're 4 scrolling shooters. The one they made before Ikaruga is Silpheed, The Lost Planet for PlayStation 2. Not to be confused with Lost Planet, The Lost Planet for Xbox 360, starring Lee Byung-hun and published by Capcom. Silpheed, The Lost Planet is a game I like. Thank you. It is 60 FPS.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's like it doesn't do a lot.
It's bread and butter.
It's pretty okay, and it feels like a Silpheed game, which is something that's surprising to think is possible because there's only one other example.
Yeah.
And then, or if you don't count Project Silpheed.
I do count Project Silpheed.
That's a masterpiece.
I played that as a kid, and I was just like traumatized by this. Like I did not understand what was going on.
Someday, its time will come.
Yeah, one day.
It'll get like some video essay on YouTube made about it.
There's only one other scrolling shooter one is what I meant. And
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. I think it's better than the Sega CD one. I like the Sega CD one. Game Arts is a cool, weird company.
Yeah.
Game Arts made Silpheed, Gun Griffin, Lunar, and Grandia. It's not a bad run.
No, it's not. I like that Sega CD one because I think it's so impressive how they integrated video and actual 3D to make it look like it was all 3D on a CRT. It's just, like
the Starblade port does that too.
That's one game where you can't really get the full experience in an emulator, unless maybe all the scanline filters and stuff are good, really good now. But it was virtuosic because they had low color, low poly 3D video so that they could run it without artifacts, which was like kind of genius. And then they put actual 3D on top of it, and you're like, how are they doing all of this? And pretty neat, but that's a total side story.
Yeah.
So Silpheed, The Lost Planet, pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. It was not a launch PS2 game, but it was like very close to being a launch game. And I remember reviews and such at the time being like sequel to the Sega CD game that we all wanted but didn't play. And basically sort of like that. And it's just like it I don't think it had any kind of impact. And it is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is like Treasure's most forgotten video game. I think. If we don't count the more obscure Japan-only games like Bleach versus Crusade or Gaist Crusher.
Outside of like anime license.
Yeah, like I feel like it's the one Treasure game that came out in the West. I think even Wario World has more fans than Silpheed, The Lost Planet.
Yeah, I could maybe make a pitch for Gradius 5 also being forgotten because
I feel like I've heard people talk about it.
Yeah, I feel like people forget Treasure worked on it.
Yeah, people know Treasure worked on it.
Yeah, it's Treasure and G-Rev, right?
Yeah, it's Hiroshi Yuchi.
No, I'm just saying, I feel... Well, okay, this is probably wrong. My perception was that people thought of it as a Konami game, not as a Treasure game. But
I guess I'm an idiot, so I think of it as a Treasure game. But I do think it is. I do think it's known that it's by the Ikaruga guy.
I guess you're probably right.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's known.
Yeah, Silpheed, it's true. And also when it came out here in the US, it was Working Designs, and so Working Designs.
Well, because they put out the first one too.
Wasn't it their last
tend to
game?
Kind of bull. No, it wasn't. Their last game was like Grey Lancer or something.
Oh, that's right.
Let's not worry what their Working Designs is like.
Sorry.
This isn't the Working Designs ranking episode.
God forbid.
That one's later.
Oh man, that would actually be fun to do.
Working Designs would definitely be top 3 in our best video game publishers of all time ranking episode.
Maybe
best video game developers of all time ranking episode. Treasure would be top 10.
Yeah.
We should do that someday.
I'm not sure where in the top 10. We can talk about that later.
So yeah, I like Silpheed. Then we got to get to Gradius 5. Oh wait, are we supposed to rank? Well, we'll rank.
Let's rank Silpheed versus Gradius here. Let's put Ikaruga. We put Ikaruga at the bottom of the shooters.
Yeah, that's where.
Okay, good. Radiant Silvergun at the top.
That's where it is.
And we're putting Gradius 5 after that, and then Silpheed after that.
if you
I
like.
think so.
Yeah.
I think
Gradius
that's right.
5 is also just like, to me, I don't find it spectacular.
It's
However,
all, yeah.
when you compare the last Gradius to the last Thunder Force, then it's big.
Yeah, Thunder Force was always a little. I love Thunder Force. Whatever. I'm not going to slander Thunder Force,
Thunder
but
Force
it's
5 is cool.
Gradius 5 is also very academic, but less so in far less than Ikaruga.
Yeah.
Far less than it. I think it works better than Ikaruga, maybe because they had expectations. They had the IP, they had, Konami breathing down their necks, and Konami's got some hot breath as far as I've learned. So it's they had Konami breathing down their neck. They had the Gradius IP. Can't change the design around too much. Hiroshi Iuchi working within the confines of someone else's rules and still finding a way to work in a quirky little time travel plot. I like that quirky little time travel plot that comes up. And again, it's like an elevated arcade game, right? And it feels less like they're trying to make a console shooter than like they're making a really, really spiritually fulfilling arcade game that's on a console. I was a little cold on it when it came out because I was busy. I was working at Sony at the time. And then it's like you boot it up in these days on your retro tank, 60 FPS,
It's got a 480p mode, yeah.
It's got a 480p mode. That's a hot game, dude.
I always felt like Gradius was too constrained, as a format in general, and so it kind of makes sense to have. I mean,
that's why
Treasure do it.
That's why I really feel like I honestly feel like Radiant Silvergun's a critique pretty directly of. I think Gradius it's one of the worst, but also one of the only power-up progression systems in a side-scrolling 2D Japanese shoot-'em-up video game. You got to spend a lot of time boredly acquiring power-ups and upgrading your things. And it's like, ooh, it's a choice and it's interesting, but it's like you die and you lose it all. Game gets harder as you get worse at it, which is, I guess, some kind of a motivational thing. I don't want to take the whole Gradius as a concept to task here so much, but it's neat that Treasure made one of those that's better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The first stage of Gradius 5 feels like a very deliberate. Gradius 2 introduced these super cool moons that had snakes coming out of them, and the snakes follow you around. And in Gradius 5, you can blow up the moons, and they make a wah noise when you do it. And then every Gradius, just more or less, Wario. Has, just like Wario, and every Gradius has a core at the end of the, you shoot the core, that's the hashtag. And so you shoot the core, so it moves up and down, and it shoots 4 shots, and you can sit in the middle of the shots, and you shoot the middle of it straight on. And obviously it's a risk-reward thing if you want to get right in the middle. Gradius 5 goes, okay, shoot the core. It's like a circle that moves, like it has like an arm that has like pitch and yaw, and you're like sitting in the middle of it as it spins around you, but it's still a core. And it's like, Gradius kind of sucks in the like 2004, 2005 perspective. Like, okay, this kind of sucks, but what if I did it like ultra? And that feels like what Gradius 5 is like trying to like. What if we took this and we sort of massaged it a little bit? Yeah,
it makes sense as a perspective.
And like deliberately called back to the
And had sweet Hitoshi Sakimoto music. That's just absolutely brain blasting.
The music's sick.
Yeah, it's the one thing that ties Radiant Silvergun, Ikaruga, and Gradius 5 together is that Hitoshi Sakimoto score.
And Tactics Ogre.
Oh yeah, Tactics Ogre is legit. So wait, real quick, what's the best Konami PS2 old school bring them back? This is a shootout between Gradius 5 and Neo Contra. Who wins? 3, 2, 1. Neo Contra.
Gradius 5.
Yeah, Gradius 5.
Neo Contra wins. Very good.
Also,
I love Neo
Gradius
Contra,
5
dude.
suffers slightly from R-Type Final having come out the year before.
R-Type Final.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of any game with a gear shift button in it, dude.
Yeah.
Give me a fighting game with a gas pedal. Give me a shooting game with a gear shifter. I'm ready. Somebody actually made a fight
Lucky
stick
and Wild,
with the floor switch.
Nice.
With the floor pedal this week. They just announced it on Twitter yesterday.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, so I saw that. Well, I mean, I don't know if it had anything to do with me, but right after I talked about it on the podcast, pretty neat. So we're putting Gradius 5 over Radiant Silvergun, Gradius 5. Silpheed, Ikaruga. That seems like the right shooter ranking. Now we move into the rest.
Should we take a break?
Yes, I would like us to take a quick break. This message is endorsed by the Insert Credit podcast and not the individual panelists. This is the Insert Credit Quick Break. I'm Alex Chaffee, and this week's episode of Insert Credit is sponsored by Archaeology Tube, an exploration of archaeology, ancient history, and media criticism by a professor of archaeology with 15 years of professional experience in the field. Archaeology Tube is a YouTube channel from Insert Credit listener Dr. Bill Farley, a doctor in archaeology. He wants us to make sure you know that's not the dinosaur one. On Archaeology Tube, Dr. Farley makes videos about a lot of stuff, but some of that stuff is video games, and the interesting ways that they intersect with history and culture. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, and maybe even if you aren't, check out youtube.com/@archaeologytube, and make sure to do the subscribing and the linking and the sharing. Listeners of Insert Credit may be interested in Archaeology Tube's videos about the archaeology of Zelda, how Uncharted is actually even less realistic than you already think, how Outer Wilds took inspiration from archaeological thinking, and more. It also covers exciting news from the world of archaeology, talks about some of the most interesting sites in the world, and occasionally gets into fights with the guys from Ancient Aliens. There's even a video on how our own Frank Cifaldi is secretly linked to how archaeologists and historians preserve historic houses. It's the one about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Go to youtube.com/@archaeologytube and maybe learn an actual thing today. That's youtube.com/@archaeologytube. If you're interested in getting your message on Insert Credit like Dr. Farley, let me assure you that it's an easy, affordable, and fun process. Just email show@insertcredit.com about what you're interested in promoting, and we'll get back in touch with you as soon as we can. By we, I mean me personally. Now back to the show.
I think we should get back to the show, and let me just say, let everybody know as we get back to the show that during the break we decided that Elevator Action Returns for the Sega Saturn and Shinobi 3 for the Sega Genesis are also really good treasure games, even though they're not by Treasure. Shinobi 3 for Genesis is like the best. It's like the best treasure game. It's like more of a treasure game than any treasure game.
Little too long, but still.
Little too long, and some of the levels really don't work. I'm talking about the vehicle segments do not work.
They look cool on the box.
Yeah.
Shinobi 3 is like top 5 games of all time for me. I love that game.
You want to talk about cramming action into some
buttons.
And
then Ninja 5.0 also belongs in this list. But anyway, let's get back.
Let's get back to us. So we had just finished with we'd gotten to 1998 Radiant Silvergun. We're rolling the clock back from 2004 Gradius 5. We're rolling it back to 1999, which saw the release of 2 games, one of which we're going to table. The other one we're going to go ahead and put on the chopping block. Rakugaki Showtime. Let's table that one for later. Okay. We're tabling that. It's going into the group with Light Crusader. It's going to be discussed alongside Light Crusader later in the show. At the end, before the ranking, we're going to get back to Rakugaki. Rakugaki Showtime sucks. Does anybody like Rakugaki Showtime here? Raise your hand.
No.
Do you like it, Brandon?
It's pretty.
It is the most unfinished. Maybe it's the worst treasure game. I don't know.
I think
it's a beta.
Most unfinished, I think, is
Advanced Guardian Heroes.
Yeah, I think it's worse than Advanced Guardian Heroes.
Even less finished than Advanced.
Yeah, even less. There's not only does it lack a plot, it lacks like a mechanism. It doesn't have any.
They didn't really even finish the prototype. It's got no teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an unfinished prototype, and that's putting it goddarn lightly. I'm sure there's some renaissance coming for it, where someone's going to make a 5-hour video essay about how great it is. But for me, you want a weird-looking PS1 game, you play Ore no Ryori, play Suzuki Bakuhatsu. If you want a weird-looking game by... Is that by Enix? Did Enix publish that?
Yeah.
No.
Suzuki Bakuhatsu is for sure Enix.
Yeah, Enix was doing weird stuff on the PS1.
They were.
They even made an RPG where there's no battles for the first 4 hours. That's Dragon Quest VII. That's good. So anyway, let's move on to Bangai-O for Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast. Now there are these are 2 versions of the game. You can like one, or you can like the other, or you can like neither. There's the scoring system is slightly different.
So here's the thing for me about Bangai-O.
Let's hear it.
I was unfortunately spoiled by I had different expectations for this because of Ranger X, which we talk about on this show a lot. And
Rangers.
Big robot with tiny little dudes running around to me, I was like, I want this to be another Ranger X, and it just very much wasn't. So it took me a long time to figure out what was the fun thing. And the fun thing is releasing a bunch of missiles at the last second, doing a bunch of score stuff. And so once again, this is one that I had to watch Vincent Diamante of InsertCredit.com play.
First time I ever met Vincent Diamante, I sat there and watched him play Bangai-O for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
While we were waiting for you.
In order to figure out how to like this game, I had to watch Vince do it a bunch. And then I was able to like it conceptually, but it's still not really for me, but I still do like the idea of something that is like, let's go all the way pachinko, but make it really hardcore. It's just a neat idea.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Missile Commandian.
Yeah.
All of the levels are little puzzle things.
Just little
some
puzzle
of them
boxes.
longer than others. I too, I'm a fan of Ranger X. I'm also a huge fan of Assault Suits Falcon. Cybernator, as some may know it in the West. An enormous fan of Metal Warriors for the Super Nintendo. It's one of my favorite games I've ever played. So it's big robot. The idea of a big robot who is writ very small on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Just a tiny, tiny big robot.
I like when you got even tinier little guys that are humans that are running around.
Just little single pixels, just little specks, and then there's little tiny buildings, and you're just blowing stuff up and causing destruction and eating fruit, which is an homage to old arcade games like Pac-Man, I suppose. The fruit is your score, and you get bigger fruit. For the bigger the missile, the bigger the fruit. The closer to danger you are when you fire the missiles. The more missiles, the bigger the fruit. The more the missiles, the more the monsters. The whatever.
Yeah.
And it's
Mischief the Makers.
Yeah, the Mischief the Makers. It's
a lot more fun than Rampage, and it feels like it's in the same genre as Rampage, the different format.
And it's one of the few times where the treasure's quote unquote level design works, because there's supposed to be space colonies,
because it's the focus.
And occasionally, I'm also a huge fan of Subterranea and Solar Jetman and small vehicle games with weird gravity mechanics. So Bangai-O always worked for me personally. It always felt like just a beautiful video game for me, even though it twisted my expectations up quite a bit. And I always loved that original Bangai-O. I should point out there's a difference between the N64 and Dreamcast versions, which the Dreamcast version is a little bit easier. They just changed the way...
And they redid some of the graphicisms.
Yeah, it's like fruit refills missiles or something like that. I'd need to consult the owner's manual, the IRS handbook, in order to figure out what it is. But they made a fundamental change that just made the game way more, like
a little more approachable.
A little more approachable. Yeah, very nice. So 9 years after Bangai-O came out, Bangai-O Spirits came out for the Nintendo DS. Now, in my opinion, this is hands down the best game treasure ever made, and I can defend it till the end of time. But let's just go ahead and let me say what I like about Bangai-O Spirits for the Nintendo DS. It's more Bangai-O, right? Comically, it's Bangai-O on a very small screen that I had trouble seeing when it came out. So I like a game if I'm willing to put up with the tiny screen with a tiny character. It's more Bangai-O on a tiny screen, and it's simplified mechanics. It's a little bit simpler. It just feels a little tiny bit smoother to play, and it has a level editor, right? And the level editor is ultra intuitive. There's like a button that's like goal, and you just attach the word goal to any object, and then whatever that object is, there are only so many verbs to interact with, usually make it die, right? So you attach goal to a specific enemy, and then if you kill that enemy, the level's over. And then you can just build whatever you want. And not only can you build it, you can also send your friends audio recordings. You can play an audio recording into the microphone of another DS to transfer the level.
I've talked about this on here, but like that thing continues to capture my imagination, that the way that you transfer your level to somebody else is you play it on your little DS speakers, and
it plays the little fax machine sound.
Hold it up to the other DS microphone, and then it basically transmits fax machine noises, little beeps and boops.
So this is like a rare example of, I was 29 years old and I had a full-time job. I was working at Grasshopper Manufacturer at the time, and I was a level designer by trade. And I had buddies in the office, and I had 3 buddies in real life. Okay. Well, I had more than 3 buddies in real life, but I had 3 buddies in real life who played Bangai-O Spirits on the Nintendo DS. And I knew like 7 guys in the office who were playing it on the Nintendo DS. And we were passing each other levels all the time. Not only that, there was good remote multiplayer. And what Bangai-O Spirits did, and I've talked about how treasure games feel incomplete. Well, Bangai-O Spirits is definitely the most complete treasure game because you can make whatever you want.
Yeah.
In a way, it's the platonic ideal treasure game where it's like, we made all these mechanics and they're good. They added stuff. They added weapons and gimmicks and objects and interactions and stuff to Bangai-O to make it more of a lively, robust game, right? So it's like, it's the most complete treasure game because you can just make a level. I was making levels in Bangai-O Spirits that I thought were like spectacular, right? Like I thought some of these levels were like great. I had whole like Gears of War campaigns done up where it just really, really felt like you're playing a real video game with minimal effort. You can make a level that feels really exciting. Put a couple rival mechs in there and have a couple weapons and a soccer ball to kick at them or whatever. And then you can just have a little thing you can play on the train for 20 minutes more than 10 times. You can make your own treasure game. You can roll your own. And that is the spirit of Masato Maegawa, the man, is he just wanted to roll out some prototypes and have some good times with a couple of things, right? So I feel like that's why I'd say Bangai-O Spirits is the best treasure game. Y'all don't have to agree with me because I have too much of a personal experience with it. Then Bangai-O Missile Fury for the Xbox.
I just want to say a funny thing about Bangai-O Spirits, which is that I guess technically, and truly technically, you got to play a bunch of secret, unreleased...
Lost treasure games, yeah.
Grasshopper manufacture games.
That's true. That's true.
Because if they were making those in the office, those are technically the property of Grasshopper manufacture.
Wow.
So
I'd like to see what Nintendo thinks about that, though. But it's like Nintendo would be like, it's made on our hardware, though, with software licensed to us.
So technically, it's secret, lost, hidden treasure, Grasshopper manufacture, and Nintendo.
Where's God-darn Frank Cifaldi and the Video Game History Foundation to preserve this? Right. But it's that was just a wonderful, beautiful time. And one of the best things about Bangai-O Spirits was trying to make a level where the game can crash. And then challenging your buddy.
Trying to put too much stuff in it.
Challenging your buddy and saying, okay, past a certain point, we didn't have to say it anymore. Or it's like, okay, well, this is going to crash unless you're real good.
Yeah, unless you beat it first.
If you fire, because you could have so many enemies on the screen that you fire off a missile and you get into the decimal points of frame rate. And being able to bring the most powerful, the most popular video game console in the world to its knees very easily was a lot of fun.
I think that's the first thing I did, just being a dumb idiot. I just was like, how many things can I put up? And then I crashed it.
The best part was getting it to be like, to get it within like the true game designer. I put on my game designer's hat in a true fashion when I started making levels where you'd get it as close to crashing as possible, but it definitely wouldn't crash no matter what. So that's game design, Jerry. That's actually a lot of what game designers do on your favorite AAA games, kids.
How about that Missile Fury?
Missile Fury for Xbox 360, I don't like as much, but I like it.
Yeah.
And it has a level editor as well, so that's cool. I just, by the time it came out in 2011, I was no longer working in an office with a bunch of game designers.
Yeah.
And, we just didn't really chill so much with it, but maybe it's better. I don't know. I feel like that Bangai-O on the DS was my favorite of those 3. Also
interesting because depending on how you count, there are 3 or 4 Bangai-Os, depending on whether you want to separate the GameCube, the N64 and Dreamcast.
And the Dreamcast. I think we should just mash them together. I think they're the same one.
We would, but I'm saying just like in terms of games.
Yeah.
If you were to think about treasure games that had sequels or had the longest legs, Bangai-O has the most games of any original property for treasure, then is equaled only by Bleach in terms of number of games that Treasure made. So that's kind of funny and weird.
Yeah, neat, huh?
Yeah.
But the Bleach ones, I guess we're gonna get to the Bleach one. We're gonna get to one of the Bleach ones.
So Bangai-O, are we putting anything else with Bangai-O?
No, Bangai-O is quite singular.
Is Spirits, then Missile Fury, then the original?
Man, I feel like the original should be in the middle.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't play as much Missile Fury, but maybe it's better.
It might be.
I've got to revisit it. Crystal Lee, get me an Xbox 360, please.
You got it. I was a 360 head in high school. I was an achievement hunter, and I played. I might have told this story. I played 130 hours of Final Fantasy 13 and realized I didn't like video games anymore.
Final Fantasy 13 times 10.
Yeah. And so I wasn't playing video games when that came out, but had it come out like 2 years prior, I probably would have been all over it. I don't really have any experience with Bangai-O. I've booted up the N64 and Dreamcast games, but they
never really stick.
Never really grabbed me. I should probably play the DS game.
Check that DS one. Get it on an R4 or something.
I've got an R4.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't condone piracy, is what I say.
Yeah, me neither. But I love it. So. Yeah, I guess we would put regular vanilla Bangai-O in the middle. I know a couple of really cool people who freak out about Missile Fury. So I feel like I really need to.
I wish Vince were here to tell us if it's better than the.
I think it works for respect to put the original in the middle here.
The most fascinating trend of the late aughts, early 10s is the Xbox 360 is the quiet otaku console where you've got
they had
all these
Vandal Hearts 2 on there
and experience making these just virtuosic dungeon crawlers, and there's a Kinect visual novel that's got a Doranpachi in it.
Yeah.
And just the sickest stuff.
Students of Round.
Phil Spencer, if you're listening, can you please put those cave games on the Xbox Series X? I'll buy them all.
They had a unique concept on there.
Next time I see him, I'll ask him.
A guy could do a real good top 20 Xbox 360 games list.
Infinite Undiscovery? Yeah, I like that game a lot.
We can revisit the 360 list.
And it's on Xbox Series X now, backwards compatibility. I bought it. Yeah. It's beautiful. Infinite Undiscovery. It's back.
So what's our next group here?
We'll do another 360 at some point.
Next group. Well, I already said I would do my own. I'll do one, and you all can critique it in real time. I'll write blurbs, and then I'll read them to announce each game. And then we can talk. Okay, next game.
Here we go.
So right now we're on where it starts to get philosophically difficult, because I just said I think Bangai-O Spirits is the best treasure game, but now we come face to face with Sin and Punishment, released in 2000.
What I would say is the best treasure game.
What you would say is the best treasure game, and I wouldn't fight back too hard. But also I like Silhouette Mirage, and I like Gunstar Heroes. Got to respect Gunstar Heroes. You got to respect Gunstar Heroes, bro. So
you got to play that Astro.
You got to respect the troops.
So Sin and Punishment is a hard one for me. This is another one where I like the idea and I like looking at it, and I think it's really fun that they decided to make the least N64 looking N64 game.
Oh yeah.
But I don't like controlling it. I think you're better off playing it in an emulator with custom controls and having actual twin stick.
I've got a nice setup for
this game would have been better on the PlayStation 2, and they released a game on the PlayStation 2 that same year.
Yeah, we don't want to. We'll talk about that one. I read that one in a minute.
But it's just weird. It's a weird one. It's cool that it's also on the IQ player. It's funny.
Neat. Yeah, on the IQ player. It's neat that it starts with a straight up Space Harrier homage.
It is celebratory of video games in general, and I like that.
But it's kind of it feels like a Hollywood movie version of just video games, but made in Japan.
It's also very post-Evangelion.
Yeah.
It's super post-Evangelion. The sequence where everything is drowned in blood, and then you turn into a robot, and now you have at
the end, and you have the
link out dodge,
the missile command final battle.
That could be why I don't like it so much.
It's got that missile command final battle, but there are as with most treasure games, it has a very joyful pair. I would say a pair of levels where the absolute brilliance of the design is fully realized by the people making the game. And that's the first level, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not the Space Harrier homage dream that you wake up from. Yeah. But it starts with Space Harrier and it ends as Missile Command, which is fun. A Space Harrier, but you're running on the ground. Let's not split too many hairs about Space Harrier.
You can run on the ground in Space Harrier.
You can. But you can also fly, which you can't do in Sin and Punishment 1, but you can do in Sin and Punishment 2, which is why Sin and Punishment 2 is definitely under Sin and Punishment 1, in my opinion. But anyway, there's the first real level, there are moments where they realize exactly how good the game they're making is. So in case you haven't played Sin and Punishment, number one, give it a shot. It's available to play on a lot of stuff now, isn't it? Is it on the?
It's on NSO now.
Yeah, it's on the Nintendo Switch Online.
The expansion pack, it's on there.
Yeah, you can play it.
The controls are weird on the C stick. They do weird things.
Yeah, emulate it, man. Just emulate it, everybody. Check it out. And play it with an Xbox controller. Once you understand what the game is about, to get a good controller configuration for it. But it's you have a gun and you have a sword, and you can move left and right, and you can jump. Sometimes your character's running forward. Sometimes your character is standing still, a la a gallery shooter. It has a little bit in common with Konami's G.I. Joe. It has a lot in common with Cabal. It feels spiritually quite often like Wild Guns, I think is one of the closer games to it. But what it is a 3D AAA dramatic shooter, rail shooter game. You can jump. Enemies, occasionally there are obstacles you have to jump over while shooting. You can move left and right. You can also aim your gun. You can jump. When a projectile is when an enemy gets too close to you, you can let go of the trigger and then press it again to slash them with your sword, causing instant death. When a projectile of a specific type, usually the hypervisible projectile, is coming at you like a missile, and you let go of your shoot, you can shoot it out of the air, or you can let go of the shoot button. Just as it's about to hit you, pull the trigger again. And you will reflect it with your sword. You'll hit it with your sword, and then it flies. This is the important part. This is the brilliant part. It flies in the exact direction your crosshair is pointing, and you can take down enemies and stage gimmicks with it. This is, you can blow up exploding barrels, knock down.
I believe it'll seek and follow if you are targeting an enemy at the time where you hit it.
And there is also a lock-on mode that can be engaged where your bullets do less damage. So it is the most mechanically robustly realized of all treasure games. If you're looking at this from a formalist perspective, this is the most concept complete treasure game, and it is the most comparable to what we would in modern times call a AAA video game. It has about a modern AAA game's worth of stuff in it, in the mechanics. And then there's a later level, the aircraft carrier level, where you're flying on a big old a psychic little girl is controlling a chunk of asphalt, flying it through the air that you stand on, and you fight numerous nonsense monsters in the sky. But there's an indoor component to that, and I think that's also a level that works very well, because you're in these
where you're chasing the rat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That level works phenomenally well as well, and it proves that the designers really did understand the game. But what they did, and maybe this is part of what Brandon doesn't like, they just flooded it with plot diarrhea.
But you can skip it.
Yeah, you can skip it. Yeah, they flooded it with plot diarrhea.
But the way they posed the game, it feels wrong to skip it.
Yeah, but they put the phrase "press start to skip" that is in huge letters blinking on the bottom of the screen in every cutscene to just like yell at you to skip it. Like they're begging you to skip it, but also it's like you probably shouldn't, because then you won't understand why the characters are where they are.
I think everybody listening is probably familiar with the Nintendo 64 controller. Oh, yeah. It's a weird trident of nonsense. You usually hold with your left hand on the analog stick
in the middle,
your right hand on in the middle,
left hand,
and your right hand on the buttons on the right.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing the Share in the Wonder game where you hold the D-pad with your left hand. So on Sin and Punishment, you hold left hand on the D-pad, right hand on the analog stick. There are other control configurations, but this is the default.
Yeah, the
D-pad,
Z button,
your left hand.
Yeah.
Your Z button is the gun trigger and the sword swipe, and your right
L button
hand
is your left hand L button is the jump. Your right hand is on the analog stick to aim, and your left hand is on the D-pad to move.
Yeah.
You can double jump in the air. You can jump and then jump.
Yeah.
And you can double tap a directional input to
dodge roll. Yeah.
And it is a sort of a Dark Soulsian roll with like frames where you can roll through things and you just will not be touched. Like they just like straight turn off the collision.
Yeah.
The same way Dark Souls does.
If this were on an Xbox controller, it would be better. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we all believe
That's
that.
That's basically it.
I've definitely wired my brain to enjoy it on N64. But
me too. Yeah, I beat the heck out of it.
And that is exactly where I fall down on this. Is that I can't get my brain to get along with what the game wants me to do. I think when you have a game that is difficult and then you throw a difficult control scheme into the mix, then that's one thing too many. As far as difficult.
I feel like what this game really needs is, of all the treasure games, this is the one I most want them to do a full-on 4K 60 FPS 16:9 remaster of. Because also the graphics are I have an HDMI modded Nintendo 64 paid courtesy of Christa Lee and Sound Retro Co. And the game is pretty unlookable at times. It's pretty hard to get your eyeballs around. It's a real eyeball minefield.
It's definitely a CRT game.
It's definitely a CRT game.
Yeah, it really benefits from the CRT blurring.
I think having a modern version of that would be a real nice thing, a real good. Also, I think the gunshot sound effect is really bad, and it's like the most frivolous thing that ruins a video game for me.
There were two things you mentioned. You mentioned the level where you're chasing the rat and how that really feels like a culmination of everything.
Yeah.
The thing that's, again, to just like explain, maybe belabor it, but like your character walks forward and you move left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the level where you're chasing the rat, they have like stages where you're in a round and there are obstacles and you have to stand behind the obstacles to not get hit by things.
Yeah.
Running in a circle. There are just enemies. That's the point where the game goes, okay, time to play jump rope. And so you have to like jump rope over lasers as you're aiming the weapon.
Yeah.
So you're like thinking, you're like splitting your thinking.
It's like pulling the halves of your brain apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't like it when that happens to me. I'm like, all right, this is for somebody else. Like this isn't.
Yeah.
This is like when I'm sitting in a crowd and I don't know if other people have this problem, but say I'm at a restaurant and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to talk to the person I'm with, but I can't not hear all the conversations happening around me. I hear them all and absorb them all simultaneously, and it just rips my brain apart, and I can't control it. It does.
Brandon mentioned Ronald McDonald Treasure Land as being a game you can play all the way through in one sitting. That's this game for me. I can play all the way through this game. I'm gonna admit, I hate admitting this, but I can skip cutscenes. I do not mind skipping the cutscenes anymore. I can sit down and just play this whole thing, and I've done it dozens and dozens of times.
I'm sure I could give it an honest go and go for it. It's just I feel pushed away every time I try.
It has that treasure game feel just all over it. It is shellacked in that.
Which isn't to say I don't like the game. I just wish I could engage with it more earnestly.
Like I said, it texturally and pacing wise, scope wise, it is the closest treasure ever made to a modern AAA video game.
Yeah.
Both modern in its time and in our time. So it's a curio for being that. The fact that it has we talked about the chasing the rat level, which has like aspects of Space Invaders in it. It's a neat game where it felt, and I'm not sure if this is what they were going for, though it felt like at the time Treasure was looking at a bunch of old arcade games and being like, what would a AAA modern version of this be? Kind of like Zone of the Enders 2 has the Vic Viper starship in it. It was almost on that level where they're implementing Missile Command as Evangelion and Space Invaders cover as a thing, and again, games that nobody was really jonesing for, like Wild Guns, Cabal, Konami's G.I. Joe. All of this. Make a game that felt kind of like a light gun game, but wasn't a light gun game. They bit off a whole lot, and they choked on it a little bit. But it's just a beautiful video game for me. But the sequel, Sin and Punishment Star Successor, is a great game for absolute weirdos. It came out the same day as Bayonetta, I believe. Mm-hmm. Right?
That was a day to remember.
I bought both of them. took them home, and
Yeah, I feel like the controls still mess with me, like because you have to aim with the remote and then move with the D-pad, and those aren't moving in the same directions. Again, it's split.
Oh yeah, you don't have to aim with the remote.
You can use the nunchucks.
Yeah, I guess you can.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't aim with no remote. I enjoyed that game, but I don't like that you have a jetpack and you can fly. I think being grounded and having to jump was like 99,000,000% of it. So I felt like being able to fly just kind of ruined it and turned it into a sort of not as good Panzer Dragoon.
Brandon, I'm curious. What did you think about Kid Icarus Uprising? Because that's the only other game that I think exists in the world that lives in that same space.
I never touched it.
I love that game, but it hurts my hands physically.
The most physically painful regular old video game.
I can't play a level without having pain, but it's one of my favorite games.
Yeah, the game, they had to make a stand for the 3DS just so the person they perceived as normal could play it.
Doug Bowser, if you're listening, please, for the love of God, port that to the Switch.
Yeah, just let me play it with a normal controller on a TV.
With a pointer, I'll point one arm up. I don't care. Just please. It's so good.
That's a virtuosic little video game.
Well, I'll ask him next time I see him.
Doug Bowser.
Sakurai just
man, but I really like Sin and Punishment 2, but it's definitely beneath Sin and Punishment 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So are we putting these just in their own slot, or are we starting to add more of the 3Ds in here?
So I think we're getting very close to the end. Let's go ahead and just put the Sin and Punishments together, and now we have a few games left, and let's just kind of power through these. We've
got Light Crusader.
Really cool game.
Yeah, is this when we get to the rest?
Well, do we need? I think a licensed game has to be a thing, and then the rest is something else.
Well, I think the licensed games kind of they kind of fit in. We already did a couple Bleaches, and we did Astro Boy, and we did Tiny Toons.
Bleach, yeah.
Like basically, here's what we've got left. We've got Light Crusaders.
I thought we did do all the Bleaches. We put all the Bleaches
missed. There's one Bleach left, and it's my favorite one.
We didn't do Blade of Fate. We didn't do Versus Crusade. Right. Oh, we did do Blade of Fate, yeah.
And we did do Blade of Fate. We didn't do Versus. Like, don't worry. I've played the heck out of Versus Crusade. So we've got Light Crusader, right?
Yeah.
We got Light Crusader. We've got Hajime no Ippo, the fighting. We've got Wario World.
Yeah.
We've got
Rakugaki Showtime.
Oh, Rakugaki Showtime. Yeah. I mean,
I don't want Rakugaki Showtime.
We'll put it in there. We've got Rakugaki Showtime.
Stretch Panic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.
That game is cool.
Light Crusader, Rakugaki Showtime, Stretch Panic, Hajime no Ippo, the fighting, Wario World, Bleach versus Crusade, Geist Crusher and Geist Crusher God.
Oh, and Dragon Drive.
Dragon Drive.
Man, I meant to mention Dragon Drive during Sin and Punishment. Okay, so let me do that real quick.
Probably should go in the Sin and Punishment.
Let me do this real quick. Have any of y'all played Dragon Drive?
I haven't, but if it's Sin and Punishment,
it's not very good.
No, it's not. It's not. The reason I'm bringing it up is Sin and Punishment 2 feels like Treasure making a Panzer Dragoon game, which seems like a really good idea. But then
Dragon Drive is them actually
making a Panzer Dragoon game, and it's my only quote unquote criticism of like Panzer Dragoon Zwei is like, I wish it had like slightly more Treasure-esque shooting or whatever, And then Dragon Drive is just it's joyless.
Yeah, it feels very empty.
Yeah,
and,
the shooting is so joyless.
Game Master's shot.
It's non-tactile, but it has decent music and kind of some fun-looking environments. But it's just kind of void. There's no joy in it.
What platform is that?
It's a GameCube.
It's GameCube exclusive, Japan exclusive. You should that should also go in the Sin and Punishment zone, but at the bottom of it.
Yeah, it goes. It's definitely way on the bottom of that one. Yeah. I would put it several slots down from Sin and Punishment 2. So let's go back to Light Crusader. Light Crusader was
another game I could just play straight through.
I love it.
Yeah, I like it a lot too.
Light Crusader's Treasure making a Zelda, but it's not a Zelda. The actual Treasure making a Zelda is Crusader of Senti, Ragna Senti Soleil, which is weird, which is not made by Treasure at all.
This is more like Treasure making a Zelda.
Like a Commodore 64 Zelda.
Exactly. Made for the Amiga.
Like a Treasure doing a Camelot impression.
Yeah.
I liked the thing that they flirted with in this one where they were like, well, here's our idea is stacking stuff and jumping on top of stuff.
That was already in Landstalker.
It was already in Landstalker, but the way that they did it made you could just like get up way on top of things, but they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
It's pretty okay. You can just play through it. It's fun.
I'm a big time Landstalker head. I can play all the way through Landstalker, and very, very recently I did just that. I still got it. You know, it's I can play through that game. I love that game, and I came to like Crusader. And like Crusader was $9 in the bargain bin at a toy store. So a toy store in Indianapolis, Indiana, where the clerk was later. Was one of the parts of a murder-suicide in the store, and the store closed down.
Wow.
So it was one of the parts of it. I won't begrudge them by saying which part. But I bought Light Crusader there. It was I used to stop in there because they marked games down to absolutely ridiculous prices, and $9 bought Light Crusader, took it home, and was like, this ain't Landstalker, and this ain't even Zelda. This is something weird. I like it, but okay.
It feels more like those like D&D style arcade games that people would make in those days. Where
it felt like Treasure was like kind of in somebody else's house.
Yeah,
you know, like they were just kind of hanging out.
They were trying something, didn't really work, but I still like it.
And they just kind of got up and left without saying goodbye. Basically, they never went back to that show. They never tried to make a. It might have just kind of shocked them awake, and they're like, you know what? We don't want to make like a sort of action adventure game with this story. Let's go back to the arcade.
Perhaps they didn't like it because the story kind of made sense, and they actually kept it pretty light, even though it was like an RPG adventure game.
Sort of a Spartan little pulp tale it tells. Yeah,
they were sparing here, where you would think they would be more expansive. But anyway, I like it.
It's a weird one. I like it.
I think it's probably going to be. It's going to be pretty near the top of this particular grouping for me.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Stretch Panic.
Stretch Panic. That's a game that I think is this is another one that's like, we have an idea. And that idea is, what if you could stretch all the polygons that
what
exist?
if you could grab it and stretch it, dude?
And,
the emotion engine.
It's got really weird and neat movement mechanics where you can kind of like grab the ground and fling yourself, almost like Knuckles Chaotix, so I was kind of primed for that. But you can also pull the ground up and use it as a shield from attacks, and then of course there are giant booby ladies whose bras you can snap in order to get rid of them.
So they scream to death.
Weird and stupid. So it's like not all the way thought through, and that's where you really
But it's a mechanic on a plate. I think it is another example of a somewhat woefully incomplete game.
But kind of neat.
It's definitely one of those PS2 games that, like, back when the PS2 was around, you know, Mr. Mosquito and Robot Alchemic Drive and
love
other
Rat.
games that are like, Rat's great. Yeah, of like, this is like, you have DVD now and you have just like a little bit more fidelity and you can just do like a little bit more weird, like a little more intricate stuff, and we're not quite sure what we're doing with it.
And we're not sure why we're doing it either. In the case of Stretch Panic,
we don't really have a mission statement.
They had to develop a whole Byzantine cast of characters and a plot. A girl with her sisters or whatever. I have not played this game in a very long time. But they had to develop a lot of reasons why they were doing what they were doing with this game.
Yeah, I really liked it when I played it at the E3 where it was announced.
Yeah.
But I had the thought that what I was playing was like sort of a test bed for something that was going to become more robust and
a train
better put
that was
together.
never going to arrive. You had a ticket to a train that was never going to arrive at the station.
So it never really got there, and the things that I liked about it remain the things that I like about it. However, it did not fully come together.
It's not a finished thing. It's somebody on Twitter's viral screenshot Saturday tweet of a video, basically.
And I guess we didn't talk about Rakugaki Showtime.
Oh yeah, I just don't want to talk about
that. But the one thing I'll say about Rakugaki Showtime is
it was another popular import at import shops for $100 some bucks.
You can play as Marina from Mischief Makers in it.
Yeah, she in there.
And that's
I read it was supposed to be a Tiny Toons game, and they had to retool it.
Yeah, I think they should have retooled it into the garbage. No offense.
Yeah,
they were making a Tiny Toons PS2 game, and they also were making a really pretty. I think this is Treasure, and if it's not Treasure, somebody's going to yell at me. But they were making a really pretty Naomi game that they showed off at like one trade show. It's Gun something. I can't.
Gunbeat. But it actually.
Gunbeat.
If you look at it now, it's not actually that pretty.
I like all the animation, but There's no build of that. It's
yeah, nobody's done played that one. It's like a shooting racing game.
Yeah. It's like a shooting.
They never made a racing
on
game.
hamsters.
They never made a racing game.
Nope. They tried to, and then
Sega had that
conditions became unfavorable.
Yeah, Sega owned it. So Rakugaki Showtime's it's a bad game that I also played with Vincent Diamante, where it's like we're like trying to enjoy playing it. It's like you could have just made a rock solid dodgeball game, Treasure. You didn't have to add these. The ball just seems to have a mind of its own 99% of the time. There's going to be like one guy listening to this who is like the world's biggest Rakugaki Showtime fan, and he will kill me. Minutes after listening to this.
There's probably something neat about it. It just
I've looked for it. I've looked for it so many times. I played fully through the campaign. Like I know that you're not supposed to play the campaign. It's a multiplayer game. I played fully through the campaign like last year and recorded it. And I didn't have a good time.
It's so easy to imagine a Treasure made like dodgeball, like with hit stop, like Windjammers type. Like you can just see it in your mind, and it's not. Yeah, it's not Rakugaki Showtime.
It's just not there. I mean that's falling very far to like it's. I don't know if it's the very bottom of the list, but it's way down there for me.
Yeah,
this is where we start talking about the ranking, I guess. Why not start talking about the ranking right now? Next, we got Hajime. So Stretch Panic is better than Rakugaki Showtime, for sure. Anyway, Hajime no Ippo, the fighting. Have y'all played this?
No, love the anime.
This is another one of their Game Boy Advance games. Who's played it?
I have not.
I played it a little bit. It's a
ultra hyper paraphernalia, way too much of a hamburger handful of a punch out sort of game.
Yeah, it's a punch out.
Yeah,
punch out plus.
There's too much going on. It is a hand pain maker.
Yeah. It's got some neat visuals.
Fired up on your Mister. If y'all got a big old TV, check it out with an Xbox controller. But I mean, it just
should try that.
It was not a fun game. It's such an optometric challenge on a tiny non-backlit Game Boy screen that we would have had at that point in time.
I like the big characters and stuff, but I didn't enjoy playing it. So
yeah, it's a big miss for me. Wario World for GameCube, but it's a big miss for me. But it's better than Rakugaki Showtime.
It's kind of cool.
Not as good as Stretch Panic though.
No, it's not as good as Stretch Panic.
Right.
I think Wario World's like kind of like
Wario World. Are we on Wario World now? I was saying Hajime no Ippo is better than Rakugaki Showtime.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry. And but it's not as good as Stretch Panic. Wario World. I'd put Wario World under Stretch Panic, right under Stretch Panic.
Yeah.
Wario World. I much prefer the Wario game for the Wii by Ganbarion.
Shake It?
Yeah, Wario World Shake or whatever it is. I much prefer that
Wario
game.
Land Shake It, yeah.
That's a neat little game with neat graphics. But I mean, it's not nearly trying or doing the same thing. Wario World is a 3D platformer by Treasure, and it is maybe the high. Like I don't want to like trample anybody's toes because I know that Treasure made some of the most beloved games that ever came out on Sega consoles. But this might have been the highest moment in their professional career. Nintendo.
Well, they released 4 games in this 1 year. So yeah, I think
so.
It had to be.
Wario World was a situation where Nintendo
gave them the shot.
Asked them to make a 3D platforming game with one of their characters in it. Like that was momentous for them.
It was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And I mean, it was Wario who was always the weirdo's choice, right?
If you want to get strange with Nintendo, he's your guy.
At this point in time, pre-Super Mario Galaxy, there'd only been 2 3D Mario games. There'd only been 3 3D Zelda games, right? A 3D Nintendo character game was a really big deal. And number one, Wario can't knock nothing out of No Park because he's by default kind of a trash character. And Treasure didn't exactly knock the task out of the park either. It's not a super exciting. It feels very workmanlike, and it doesn't feel very Treasure-like.
Yeah, well, it seems like they were really, they were trying to expand all at once here, releasing 4 games in one year. It was
their busiest year.
Yeah.
They overextended themselves, and that's why kind of all these games are not really there.
Yeah, like the Wario world feels very untreasured.
Yeah, so the four for people not looking at a list are Hajime no Ippo, the fighting, Wario World, Dragon Drive, D Master Shot, and Astro Boy, the Omega Factor. All four of those were 2003.
Yeah, maybe we can put that Dragon Drive. No, Dragon Drive is a Sin and Punishment like,
it's
right?
Got to be in this.
It would wherever the list ends up. We're gonna do a nice little riffle shuffle here at the end, right? And Dragon Drive is gonna wind up under Wario World, but above Hajime no Ippo. So like this, the rest is I'm not gonna put.
So did we put Astro Boy on here yet?
It's up there.
Yeah,
it's in the Neo 2D.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So Neo 2D is it's going to be an important distinction because I think it's they're true treasure games, whereas the rest here is I don't think any of these are a true treasure game. No offense to them. I think they're not good enough. Like Crusader maybe, but let's worry about that in a second.
Yeah, like
so what we've got left here, I love Bleach versus Crusade. But let me talk about that after I talk about Gaist Crusher. Geist Crusher God, I believe I'm the only one here who's played it. I played a bunch of it. Okay, just go ahead and put Geist Crusher God under Wario World, but above Hajime no Ippo the fighting. Mm-hmm. And let's just veto inclusion of Geist Crusher, because Geist Crusher God is Geist Crusher with a couple extra things in it, released less than a year after. So just put Geist Crusher God. Game's not that great. Published by Capcom. It's part of the... it is the sort of money bag Treasure should not have picked up, but I guess they didn't really have a whole lot of choices. I assume, they were floating around that. We've heard this word in the video game industry too many times, and I feel like it's never been part of anything actually big. It was a transmedia franchise where they were launching a comic book, an anime, and a video game, and a toy line all at the same time, right? I feel like nobody's ever pulled that off.
Sakura Wars, but not for long.
But Sakura Wars is a video game.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess
I got the stage shows.
It's okay. Yeah, but did those all happen on the same day though?
Oh no,
right?
No.
There was an anime. Was the anime out the same time as the first game?
I think the anime came a little later.
A little bit after. It wasn't like same day or anything. No,
because a true transmedia franchise has like a video game and an anime that like launch on the same day, right? It's like this whole think tank of marketers are like, we're gonna have the toys, the anime, the video game, the comic book. And then 6 months later there's going to be a theatrical film that ends the first phase. It's like they were trying to do games as a service stuff, really, I guess, but the service was kind of, a lot of it was exterior. Anyway, this is really way too much scholasticizing to talk about Geist Crusher, which is like, what if Monster Hunter were Mushi King and it were that simple, right? What if it were just like it's very clearly an attempt at making a little miniature Monster Hunter like for Chibises, depending on what part of the country you're from. It's so weird that Yokai Watch was like alternative Pokemon for a different type of slightly smaller children. Geist Crusher was kind of the Yokai Watch to Monster Hunter's Pokemon. And it's just a very confused, very paraphernalia, very kind of like loaded up video game that is it's just too simple. It just doesn't, I'm not asking for every goddarn 3D game by an old Japanese venerable developer to be exactly speed, power, gun, bike. But this game is just, it's a little tiny popcorn paycheck of a video game. And that it's Treasure's final game is weird. But the fact that it's not based on...
Going out with a whimper.
The fact that it's not based on an anime character who was old, and the fact that it's not in like ridiculous trash means it's better than Hajime no Ippo and it's better than Rakugaki Showtime sort of by default, because it is a 3D character action adventure video game, but it's also kind of a brawler. It doesn't make much sense. Anyway, now I want to go back to Bleach versus Crusade.
It's our last one.
I would put that above Stretch Panic. Bleach versus Crusade is what would happen if the Treasure who made Guardian Heroes made a 3D fighting game that's also Sin and Punishment.
Oh.
So that's really all I have to pitch y'all on that. What if, right?
I just never liked how it looked, was my problem.
I
really
hate the way Bleach looks.
Really empty feeling.
Not liking the anime Bleach kind of really just puts you out of this one, I think.
What I know about Bleach is that if you want to see some action, you got to be the center of attraction. But that's about where it ends.
I've heard that as well myself.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna argue for Stretch Panic being above, but I do think Bleach versus Crusade is at the very least more finished than Stretch Panic. So
yeah, I mean that's the main thing I would do, but it's good. If you download this game on your Nintendo Wii and you play it and you want to yell at me, man, first of all, you downloaded it for free. I don't condone piracy, but I love it. If you download this on Dolphin and play it and you don't like it, I mean, you had to be there. Me and my buddy played it. We versus Crusaded against one another and had what kind of felt like the beginning of a new type of video game that then never had a sequel or an equal. So I think the game to compare it to, and this, apologies to all involved, is that Castlevania Judgment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rising.
With that Death Note guy art. Right. Yeah, Rising. Yeah.
That's a similar developer to Treasure.
Yeah, they're similar, cut from the same cloth, as it were. The Konami adjacent for that particular moment. So it's a 3D weird fighting game that nobody asked for specifically. Nobody asked for it. Some people didn't mind it, but nobody really liked it or got it, right? So it's in that same vein where it's a big swing, and this is pre-esports. This is pre-Evo in Las Vegas, sponsored by Sony PlayStation. This is pre-League of Legends. It's pre-Dota. It's, pre-Final Fantasy 14.
Is it pre-Guilty Gear 2?
No, it's contemporaneous with Guilty Gear 2. Contemporaneous, baby. I love Guilty Gear 2. Dude,
it's a weird one.
I love it so much. That's on my... God, a guy could write a really good top 20 Xbox 360 games list, man.
Yeah.
I think I put that one in there.
Oh, you did? Well...
In ours, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, an interesting lapse in judgment for you, then. So I like Bleach versus Crusade because it's so god-darn interesting. And it's, pre-Gunslinger, Stratos. What other games can I mention for Street Cred? Just a bunch of these alternative, weird, MOBA-like, MMO-like, Dota-like sort of competitive action games that now kind of, ripple and die. Senko no Ronde is a fun comparison. That's G-Rev. That's a fun point of comparison here because it's also a weird versus game.
Treasure worked with them a couple times.
They did.
There's a Toho game that's kind of like that too. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I feel like Toho was instrumental in encouraging this kind of bold experimentation. But this Bleach versus Crusade, and I mean this is contemporaneous with also a lot of those Naruto fighting games on the PS3. Right.
CyberConnect 2.
Yeah, CyberConnect 2. Some legit dudes over there. But it's I just think this is a really neat licensed video game. I think there's a lot of neat licensed video games.
So now we got to rank the whole group, right?
Yeah. So one way to do it would be to decide which of these genres is the best. And then...
Oh, I was thinking we'd just have two lists. We'd have this specifics and then a list of everything.
Well, to make the everything list, I think we can start... Which genre is the best and which game? Like, what's our top boy here? What's our number one boy? What's our big baby?
I guess it's probably 2D Genesis platformers because since Silhouette Mirage is in Neo 2D basically all by itself with a bunch of other games that I don't like very much.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think you can that makes a case for the little up carrot here. It makes a case for Silhouette Mirage being head and shoulders above, and maybe even above Genesis platformers. So this is what I mean by a slightly modified riffle shuffle. We're not just shuffling them together.
Sure. So Silhouette Mirage is my bid for number one.
Okay. And then
and then I put the 2D Genesis platformers under that.
Just all of them?
Maybe not all. I might stick a Radiant Silvergun. No, I might stick I'd stick a Sin and Punishment up there.
Yeah.
Like under Dynamite Headdy.
Okay, so let's start typing this up. We want Silhouette Mirage at number 1, Gunstar Heroes, Dynamite Headdy, Sin and Punishment.
Yeah, is that too on the nose?
I like Sin and Punishment more than Dynamite Headdy, TBH.
Okay, flip them.
Yeah, I think Dynamite Headdy's a little too paraphernalious.
Okay, so Silhouette Mirage, Gunstar Heroes, Sin and Punishment?
Yeah. Then we can say Dynamite Headdy's after that.
Radiant Silvergun?
Yeah, then Radiant Silvergun, sure.
Then Radiant Silvergun.
Oh, you want Radiant Silvergun ahead of Dynamite Headdy?
I like it more than Dynamite Headdy, but I think I'm probably alone.
Yeah, I like it more than Dynamite Headdy as well.
Okay, I'm outvoted. That's fine.
I'm also gonna cry for Bangai-O to be up there.
Yeah, it should be in the
Bangai Spirits.
You could put it under.
I'd put it under Gunstar Heroes, TBH. I'd put it up in number 3.
Yeah.
It's
fine with that.
so good.
Sure.
Over Sin and Punishment.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no hesitation.
It's an easier sell for me. So.
Ow.
Yeah. All right. Now it's time to get sloppy.
Yeah.
So what's what are the now that all that's out of the way?
Well, I think it would be funny to keep McDonald's Treasureland Adventure right under Radiant Silvergun.
Put it on there.
Yeah.
Slap it on there. McDonald's Treasureland under Radiant Silvergun. Bubba boom. We've ranked 7 now. This is good.
Yeah.
Gradius 5.
Now I want to put Light Crusader because I like it.
Like Crusader.
I like it.
Go ahead, put it on there for now. Just put it under there.
Yeah, go for it.
That sounds good to me. I would then put
Yeah, what's next? Now I'm a little.
We need a Guardian Heroes up here, I think.
Yeah,
Guardian Heroes?
Sure.
That's the best of the Hakusho.
Yeah, Guardian. Let's do it. Guardian Heroes. I really feel like Yu Yu Hakusho and those 2 Bleach games are just one thing. No offense to anybody who likes the particularities of their animes. I just feel like they're the same.
We could group them all together.
We can do that later, though. We'll just put them all in a row at some point later.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think Gradius 5 under Guardian Heroes.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's
slap it in there.
Do that next.
Just slap it.
Also, it feels weird now to put the other Bangai-Os down so far, but I feel like we could just put them both down here.
Can we just Bangai-O 1 and then Missile Fury? Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I now propose a jump forward to composing the bottom of the list. What do you think?
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Bottom Ikaruga.
No, I think Rakugaki Showtime should be the bottom.
Yeah. Rakugaki Showtime.
And then just to troll people who are just looking at the list in text and then posting forum comments about it or whatever, or posting Discord comments about it. I think Ikaruga should be right above it.
Yeah, get him.
I like that.
Just to get those people. Now Hajime no Ippo should be down there, I think.
Mischief Makers.
No, let's
get them all mad.
Let's leave Mischief Makers up.
Let's make them all mad.
We talked about Tombo while talking about Mischief Makers. We didn't talk about Tombo while talking about Hajime no Ippo, the fighting.
It's true.
Did
Let's
we?
do Hajime no Ippo and then Geist Crusher.
Yeah, then Geist Crusher.
Dragon Drive, D-Master Shot.
Then Dragon Drive up above that. Yeah, Dragon Drive it's at least a GameCube exclusive. None of the other games have that. So
and then Mischief Makers?
Then Mischief Makers up there. That's good.
I like that.
Then Mischief Makers. Very good.
Wario World, canonically better than Mischief Makers.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Baby.
Oh, but I forgot we still have Advanced Guardian Heroes and Gunstar Superheroes that need to get on this list.
Yeah. You want to put those right above those?
I want to put Advanced Guardian Heroes down
below
lower.
Mischief Makers.
I want to put it below
Mischief Makers?
Below Dragon Drive.
Oh, below Dragon Drive?
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Why not?
And then Gunstar Superheroes can go above Mischief Makers.
All right. That sounds good.
I like that.
That sounds good. So we're getting into the holy territory now of can we just go ahead and put Sin and Punishment 2 under Bangai-O Missile Fury?
Okay.
I think that would be good because I think that's a good place for that to be. Sin and Punishment Star Successor. And then you know what? Let's put Alien Soldier right there.
Okay.
Because it's the soul of Treasure.
Yeah, kind of smack in the middle.
Under Sin and Punishment Star Successor. Yeah, I think that's a good place for it to be. Just for it to be hanging out right there. Again, we're doing this list Treasure style.
Yeah.
So I think now
now it's either Silpheed or YuYu Hakusho for me.
Let's do Silpheed first.
Yeah.
Just shake it up a bit.
Okay, Silpheed under
Alien Soldier.
This is a new sight
and
sound poll here.
I feel like we're giving Stretch Panic the short end of the stick.
Oh, it's true.
Well, maybe we can look at we can reckon with the list one more time when we're done here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do we got? We got Alien Soldier, Silpheed the Lost Planet. Okay, now we're getting to the YuYu Hakusho's, Astro Boy, and Tiny Toons, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we've got the Bleach, Stretch Panic, and Wario World.
Yeah. Okay, this is good. The question is, do we want to put Astro Boy and Tiny Toons above the 2 Bleaches in the YuYu Hakusho?
I want to put the YuYu Hakusho above them. But
Let's do it. Let's do YuYu Hakusho, Bleach 1, Bleach Dark Souls, just in that order, because they're the same. No offense, they're the same game. And then you want to put Astro Boy and Tiny Toons like just temporarily right under those for now.
Yeah,
just
temporarily. I think I might. I'm probably going to want to slip Stretch Panic.
Stretch Panic's going to be Stretch Panic, Wario World, and Bleach versus Crusade. We're gonna insert them in.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we putting Stretch Panic? Where's your stretch? Where's your sketch? Where are you drawing it? Where are you sketching it?
Over Silpheed.
Over Silpheed? Under Alien Soldier? Yeah, having it
Sure.
adjacent to Alien Soldier feels correct.
Funny. Yeah,
Yes,
it feels correct. Under Alien Soldier.
Yeah, it's on the other side of Alien Soldier.
Because Alien Soldier is at least ridiculous and complete, right?
Okay, 2 games left.
Okay. Wario World is not super exciting. The question is, do you put it above Yu Yu Hakusho or below Bleach Dark Souls?
Below Bleach Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Above Gunstar Superheroes. Yeah, let's do it. Because it is at least overseen by Nintendo, and it's polished, and it's finished. It's just not...
a really late GameCube game. It's got really pretty...
Very nice. Visual. Yeah, it looks really good. Now Bleach versus Crusade. I'm the only person here who's touched this one. I'd put it above Dragon Drive, definitely. And I would put it above Mischief Makers.
Yeah.
And I would put it above Gunstar. I would put it above Wario World. But then that puts
with
3
the other Bleaches. I like
puts
that.
3 Bleach games in a row.
I love that.
Okay, no. Okay, here you go. Here it is. Put it right under Yu Yu Hakusho. That's where it goes.
Okay.
That's where it goes. Because it's better than those 2. Yu Yu Hakusho is better than the Bleach games by virtue of being a Mega Drive game that is 60 FPS on your television. And those Bleach games are DS, right?
I'm going to put Blade of Fate and Dark Souls as a tie, unless you want to distinguish one from the other.
Oh, I think Blade of Fate's better, but I don't.
Okay.
But only because. But it could just be because I played it with more excitement.
Because, you know what? It's our list that counts.
Yeah, because I think I'm sure there's some Blade of Fate heads out there who played it after. Anyway, that's I'm looking at that list and I'm thinking I got to go to the bathroom. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we've made ourselves a heck of an episode.
Are we gonna read the list out loud?
It's a long boy.
You know what? We're not. If you want to see this list, you're going to have to go to insertcredit.com or forums.insertcredit.com or patreon.com/insertcredit, where you can get all kinds of other perks and bonuses for joining, which I won't enumerate right now. Instead, I'm just going to sign off and say I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And I'm Christa Lee.
And this has been our treasure chest.
Yeah, the list doesn't seem to have Astro Boy and Tiny Toons on it, though.
Oh, that's true. Okay, take that back.
I'll take that back up. We're going back in. Okay, Astro Boy, where you want to put it, Brandon? Where are you thinking? Under Silpheed?
That's what I was thinking, yep.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. And Tiny Toons above Wario World?
I was going to say below Wario World, but you could put it above. I don't care.
Let's flip a coin.
It's funny.
So, Christa, what do you think? Above or below Wario World?
I think it's above Wario World.
All
right, let's do it.
All right.
Blast it.
Buster busts loose once again.
That reminds me, I'm glad you brought us back, because now is our opportunity to nominate honorary treasure games to put on this list.
Shinobi. Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep them off of here, but okay. But separate list. You want to play?
Put them in the show notes.
You want to play some treasure-like games? Basically, a game is not the game. One game that is not treasure-like is Ranger X, which is a good game for that because it's not a treasure-like video game. It is a kind of anti-treasure, and it proves that works. But a game that is treasure-like in that when we think of treasure, we think of those 6 Mega Drive games usually, right? Those are the games that are the foundation of treasure. So Mega Drive games are the most treasure by default, and that's Shinobi 3, man. That's Shinobi 3.
Yeah, Shinobi 3, Crusader of Senti, aka Arachna Senti.
Yeah, that's a treasure like Zelda.
And then treasure kind of future, like 2D sort of things. You got your Psychic Killer, Taromaru. You have Elevator Action Returns. Mm-hmm. You got Ninja 5.0. And what else? What else do we need to throw on there?
I think My Game Video Ball, which I took to Masato Maegawa to test at one point. That's got to count. He told me I got the timing exactly correct, so...
Christa, you were going to add one?
It was taken aback.
Well, it's a little left field. I feel like Ys 8 has the way an enemy will attack, and you can slow down time with a precision deflect, and then you can keep slowing down time by continuing to precision by just jamming the button as the attack is still going on, and you can just keep doing that for like turning a 2-second moment into like a 15-second moment, and you're like phasing through enemy. Like that feels to me very Treasure.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Also, just play easy. Really
you know what? I'm gonna say this, and someone's gonna love it. I think Demon's Souls is a Treasure-like game. I think Demon's Souls is the I talked earlier about a couple of Treasure-like things going on in the FromSoft sphere, and I think that just Demon's Souls has a lot of Treasure DNA in there.
Frame Gride too.
Yeah.
Frame Gride definitely. I agree with that. Even as a Dark Souls not especially liker, I can recognize the things that I don't like about Treasure games in it, and some of the things I do. So
I wish they would have some hit stop in there. I think that would be nice.
Oh God, yeah.
Just a little, make a one of those. I feel like some of those newer Namco games, like Tales of Arise and Scarlet Nexus, kind of feel like they have some Treasure-like stuff to them. I mean, I know Brandon's a big Wolf Team fan, so that means his favorite RPG series by default is Tales, because that's Wolf Team. They had to change their name.
I don't play any of those Tales.
It's a Tales studio.
Yeah, on that note, Star Ocean The Last Hope on Xbox 360. Again, you could make a really good Xbox 360 list.
I like that one.
Star Ocean The Last Hope has like weird, like a sphere generates around an enemy, and you like pivot around it in cardinal directions, and there's like
love it,
like that kind of thing. That feels like Treasure.
Love that stuff.
I feel like R-Type Final is another example of a kind of anti-Treasure, but not exactly anti-Treasure game. The philosophy is very different, but it winds up in a similar but better place, I'd say.
I was going to say earlier that there are like a couple of developers that are like sort of in the same world. You've got your Caves, you got your Risings and your IREMs, who are like sort of just taking sort of traditional Granzella, taking like more traditional arcade stuff and just adding like a little bit of steroids to it.
Unlike Treasure, who added a whole lot whenever they tried to do the same thing, but in an interesting way. Oh, Kokuga by Hiroshi Iuchi by G-Rev is my favorite Treasure game. That's
Kid Icarus Uprising too.
Kid Icarus Uprising, another Treasure-like game. You know what? I feel like Smash Bros. Has the it kind of carries the Guardian Heroes torch.
It's a lot
forward.
like Rakugaki Showtime.
Yeah, well, it's got Rakugaki Showtime, and it's got a bit of Guardian Heroes in there, but it's more Rakugaki Showtime.
Probably the most popular game with hit stop.
Yeah, on a lot of it.
I feel like if Treasure could have gotten it together to make an adventure game after like Crusader, they could have made something like Dino Crisis 2, but they wouldn't have ever been able to do it. But that could have been a direction that they could have gone.
Yeah.
Anyone have any final Treasure thoughts?
My final Treasure thoughts are it's a tragedy that they never made a straight up first person shooter like Doom.
Oh God,
that would have been the best. That actually would have saved them before they even needed to be saved.
I guess my final Treasure thought is, if Maegawa is coming back to revive Treasure and try to make something again, I hope that he comes with the hunger. And I hope that the people he recruits to be part of the team similarly have the hunger, because I think that's what... He had the wrong kind of hunger. He had the hunger to keep his mortgage previously, which, obviously we all got to live. And there's no harm in taking a job to do a job. However, I hope that somehow he can get back into the spot where he's like, I have an idea and I want to make this game because I have this idea, and this idea is going to be interesting. Not, I just need to make something.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that the stars align to where that can happen, and some like Kowloon Knights, somebody at Kowloon Knights is like, I got an extra $2 million over here. Let me
they
slide those over to him. And then he gets to actually, he and his crew get to...
I hope that whatever he makes, he doesn't swing for too far of a fence. I hope that it's not like it's like Destiny. It's a full, it's a full MMO world. I hope it's not a battle royale or I hope it's not like them just trying to make something in a modern popular genre.
I mean, like learn from Jeff Minter. Jeff Minter is like
Still doing
the treasure of his own house. Where he's just like, yeah, I'm making this game about llamas. I'm just putting a bunch of
llama
explosions in it.
He is a treasure.
We're not going to look at Minter's thing.
We're not going to look at Minter's thing. I think whatever Treasure does next, it should be for this is kind of a ridiculous idea, but it should be for the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and Windows PC. Oh, that's what it should be for.
Yeah.
And maybe have a Switch version as well. Don't make it for Stadia 2. Don't make it for the N-Gage.
Right, yeah.
Make it for normal controllers. Just make it for normal controllers. Give that a shot.
Yeah, take the difficulty out of the control scheme and let people understand and interact with your video game.
Oh, another game that's Treasure-like that's not Treasure is Drakengard and Drakengard 2.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
I love Drakengard.
That's like if Treasure made an actual RPG. Cavia Man.
So good.
Bullet Witch is kind of a Treasure game.
Yeah,
now we're just
Resident
talking
Evil Dead Aim.
Zegapane XOR, Resident Evil Dead Aim. Yeah, so now we're just kind of getting into like Cavia games, right? So
yeah,
maybe,
We'll spend another 3 hours on that.
People complain about the combat in Drakengard, and they are wrong.
Drakengard's good. Drakengard 2 is even better. Combat's even better. The parry system's real nice. Just this sense of scale is just beautiful.
One day we'll talk about Drakengard 3, but not today.
Let's now end this episode.
Yeah, Tim, you started this episode. You want to take it home?
Hold on. I can do it. Start talking about something else.
Beatitude for Gains.
No, Beatitude for Gains. That's a pretty good thing to say.
Good bonus.
There's a quote that I like.
That's a line from a game.
For a way of closing this would be boss is approaching. Final great soldier. Action. Love dancing. This has been Insert Credit episode 290. Destroy them all. I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
I'm Christa Lee.
I'm Alex Jaffe.
Destroy them all.
That's probably a Gradius reference, because they say that in the...
They do.
They do say that.
Final great soldier, love dancing, dude.
Thank you all for making this happen. This was a tough one to put together, but I'm glad you all showed up and we all got to do it.
More like your Gladius, we all showed up.
That's right.
That's another game that's like Treasure, but not, is Gladius for
The
Xbox.
LucasArts game? I don't know about that one.
No, that game's not so good. I like that Rise of the Argonauts game. It's another similar vintage, type of...
Rygar.
Oh yeah, Rygar.